All right. Hey, everybody. 5 minutes is on time in my book. Welcome to the Gaytriarchy. Are you a man? Are you a gay man, especially? Are you a bisexual man? That we like those too. Definitely welcome here. Definitely welcome. Or are you a straight man or a woman of some sorts or a trans person, really, who just ultimately, mainly is dissatisfied with the politics and, the international politics that now the LGBT Borg hive mind prescriptive mentality demands of us. Like we are supposed to have all of these specific politics, including, don't be racist, which is that's fine. Don't hate women. Well, I don't, but I mean, they don't get to order me around. Is that what hating women is to you? Oh yes, yes. They okay. So I have to let women order me around. Okay, okay. No, that's not cool. And then they say, don't be Islamophobic. Oh, slow down. Slow down. Slow down a minute. Slow down a minute. I'm not so sure about that. And especially, I have to wonder what it's like for guys in countries where there's actually a lot of Islamic immigration and there's actual cities where it's, well over 10% of the population is Muslim because apparently they start acting very different when they become there's a significant amount of them, and they start thinking that they can sort of have little neighborhoods that are Muslim neighborhoods because they if they're thinking they don't have to assimilate, a lot of the time they will try not to, and that's part of the actual Islamic text is go to wherever you can, create Islamic spaces, try to get Sharia law. That's what the Quran sort of says. And so our guest today is living in Sweden, and I guess that Sweden is a place that has lots of that kind of thing, or so I've heard. But I've never. I think that this is literally the first European guest on the Gaytriarchy of any variety. He's up at a very obscene hour of time, so he really wanted to be here. I believe your name is Victor, but it says Nepenthes or something. I probably butchered the pronouncement. Say hi and tell us about yourself.
Hmm. Well, good morning or good evening. Oh, by the way, Nepenthes was actually the correct pronunciation. Congratulations, you're actually the first one to actually pronounce my alias right.
Oh,
Um,
I've
I
been playing a lot of God of War, so
yeah. Well, God of War is actually kind of weird game because I kind of recognize some of the mythology. Anyway, I'm just a huge nerd. So, um, what about myself? Well, I'm a gay guy. Well, I live in countryside, far off in the countryside. So it's kind of weird, and I've actually recently started to become really taboo here in Sweden, especially from the leftist perspective, since I criticize the left. And also, I used to work within the LGBT organization called RFSL, which actually has a membership in the UN, I think. The problem is that I saw was I used to actually help refugees from those really, to put it mildly, homophobic countries. But when I saw actually how RFSL handled all of them, and when I actually asked for help on my client's behalf, well, let's just say it didn't really go so well, and they actually swallowed the whole pill with queer theory, gender fluid-ish, the trans trender thingy.
okay,
So
wait,
that's
wait, 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 wait. I want to ask you a specific question.
yeah.
Um, what type of help did the refugees need that they were not getting? Like what was a repeated pattern of them suffering and they weren't getting help? Like what happened more than once?
Okay, well, yeah, you have to be really specific because it really depends on which country they were from. I mean, actually, clients from Iran, for instance, which is really it's a really odd country in the Middle East because they allow gender reassignment surgery as a cure for homosexuality. So when I asked on behalf of Iranian guys that they actually need help at the migrations office because they have to actually have to prove their case, and they were actually on the threshold to actually being kicked out and deported back to Iran. All I actually got was kind of like from the board, and the national board was, but they allow gender reassignment surgery, so it's not so bad.
That is
That's
fucked.
So
yes.
fucked up.
They're like, well, we, you know, we're LGBT, and we would prefer that the gay men don't exist anyway. So, not our problem, not our problem. And if they go back to Iran, they won't be gay men anymore. So, cool.
They're just
Yeah.
going from a G to a T.
Yes. So that's when I started to become critical. And when it came to the Ugandans, that actually having huge problems, but they come from a Christian background mostly, ish. They actually had different problems because they actually had to prove that they were gay. And when I asked the organization for some help or advice, when actually I was going to go to the migrations office and help these people, all I got was, well, it will solve themselves out, and it just didn't. I actually had two cases, which one of them actually was deported back to Uganda, and one of them actually has one of the most dreadful stories I've ever heard. They actually saw their lover being burned alive, killed and burned alive at the market, and all he could do was just watching, because if he interfered, they would do the same treatment to him. And they said, well, he just had to go back to the closet and perhaps not being so open, which is very ironic because, I mean, they are actually fighting. They were supposed to actually be fighting for the Ugandan gay guys, for instance, and so on. So, I mean, it was really, really confusing and really morally messed up.
It's morally bankrupt completely.
Yes. And also when I had, and this was actually a pattern as well. Whenever they were actually get a letter from the migrations office that were perhaps going to be deported because they were actually warning because some bureaucracy, I actually was supposed to tell them, you have to imagine that I had both gay men or lesbians and even transsexual individuals crying their eyes out, and for good reason. And all I was supposed to do was to tell them how great that, well, teach them about intersectionality, teach them about queer theory, teach them about feminism, so that they can fight within their own within their home countries. And that's just not possible in most of the cases.
So they knew that they were going to be deported, and they were like, okay, we'll train them so that they're intersectionals and they can spread the cancer at home before they. That is.
That's like the missionaries that send Bibles to starving people. I'm sure they're delicious, but it's not the right gift,
Well, you know what it's like. You've turned them into vectors, like into disease vectors. Like you basically turn them into infected mosquitoes.
Yeah, it's so there's been such a pattern from the left and of the left. In some ways, you can't exactly blame them, because if you think about this in terms of how it ended up this way, the left kind of bit off a lot more than it could chew in trying to cure all of the world's problems. They're like, you know what? All the world's problems came from straight white men, and so we're going to provide all the answers. And then when they're in charge, which happened, like they've been in charge for a while, pretty much everywhere, and they like to pretend they're not in charge, but they are. They just don't want the responsibility. They're in charge, and they things start falling apart, and they can't actually help everybody. And then and they know that they can't, and it's really a sad situation. Like it's almost like you can imagine why this is. Like, they don't not want to help these people, but it's just that the only solution that they have is not practical, but they're not going to change what their solution is.
It's like
it's kind of like this. I would say that because the situation was actually more fucked up than what I already told you. I would actually perceive it like this. The left here in Sweden in particular has actually done a lot of tokenism, I believe the word is in English nowadays. I'm not sure. You keep changing the words all the time over there.
I think it sounds right given the context, but go on.
Yeah. But the thing is also that you have to actually put yourself in the refugees' shoes as well, because I mean, because of some kind of stupid government project, and for some efficiency, so they didn't really have to hire translators and so on. They actually started hiring people from different minorities and ethnical backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds. The problem is that you can imagine if you come from, say, let's take a horrible country. Any shithole country will do. You come from shithole country A.
It's called Shitolia, okay? Don't disrespect them.
No. I'm gonna say fecalia, which means fecalia. Anyway, if you came from fecalia, and you have recently got here, and you're not sure if you can actually stay here, and you heard a lot of good stuff about this country, and so on, and so you start to actually become a little bit more open, but then you are confronted with your own countrymen within those migrations offices or whatnot. As you can imagine, you wouldn't exactly want to be open about who you are. So, and if you are open with who you are, you can actually be told by your countrymen that no, that's a lie, and you're a sick individual, and you can actually get bashed for it, and no one actually says a thing. So the whole migration and refugees processing will get really, really biased.
Let me make sure that everyone understands what you're saying. I remember we had a conversation about this before. Tell me if I got this right. So you're saying that for some of these refugees that are coming from very homophobic countries, not a lot of them don't speak Swedish, for instance. So and there aren't a lot of people who do speak this language outside of the areas that they come from. So the Swedish government starts using people from the homophobic country to be translators for the people who are trying to flee the homophobic country.
Precisely.
And they're afraid to tell them, or rather, either they're afraid to tell their own countrymen because they know they'll tell the other people that are there also and aren't, who are also homophobic, but also that the people who are translating will tell those people they're not gay because they're sick in the head.
Precisely.
Okay. Yeah, that is a terrible situation.
You can figure out how messed up the situation is. So that's why I despise the gay organizations here in Sweden, because of this, and because they've actually swallowed a lot of this bullshit that you from California, no offense, actually exported to us. And this is actually kind of funny for you, Prince, I guess, because you have to understand Swedish and most European languages, which is not English, actually have to be really, really heavily gendered. And so, for instance, they actually try to enforce linguistic changes into Swedish, which is kind of impossible because the structural sentences wouldn't make sense at all. So they actually, so, and if you just take, so if you take one thing, for instance, if you take the patriarchy theory, for instance, if I would translate the Swedish name for it, which would be könsmaktsordningen, which means actually biological sex, well, sex as in biology, sex, power, order. And as you can hear, you cannot really translate the patriarchy theory into Swedish.
No, that's a little kind of a complicated concept.
Yeah.
It's Swedish.
And also, I actually did this test with. Here's actually a fun thing for you. Can you please spell out every single letter in this LGBTQ++ whatever?
No.
Just say.
No, he's asking you to say as many as you know.
LGBTQIA++ is where I stopped even trying. Like once I got there, I was like, okay, don't try to add anything more. I still say LGBT just because that's the only thing really necessary to me.
I don't even know what the plus is.
Okay, well, I actually played this game with cats before, so
yes.
But yeah. And okay, I'm gonna say your every single acronyms, I guess that they're called.
Yes.
Okay, it would be. I have to take the Swedish words as well. HBTQA plus F plus. You can hear it. It doesn't really flow that very well. So it's actually impossible for us to actually say everything in correct order.
It's like saying supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and then trying to say it backwards.
Yes. So, I mean, our languages are kind of immune to this. So when it comes to like this gender theory, which the left is trying to impose on us,
what is the word for queer?
Queer. We actually have to import a lot of words from English because we don't really have any words.
Oh.
Well, in fairness, we don't know what it means either, so, you know, I guess you can do that.
Queer means I'm straight. I'm a straight woman wearing flannel and claiming to be a lesbian, but not ever touching a snatch.
That is rude and unfair. You forgot the bad haircuts.
Queer means I'm wearing problem glasses and part of my head is shaved.
I drink soy milk every day.
They do have to have a neon hair color in one of the 3 approved haircuts. 72 genders and only 3 haircuts. Come on, guys.
So wait, but I want to bring this. You were finishing. When you try to translate all of this stuff to Swedish, it becomes a problem.
Yes, it becomes a huge problem, and so many because we don't really have the linguistic skills really in our language to actually translate all these different terms. For instance,
it's incompatible.
It's incompatible because I mean, culturally, historically, and linguistically, it's impossible. So we actually have to import a lot of English words. So a lot of
which I just want to say really quick. I mean. No, you finish and then I'll deliver this thought.
Well, my point is that the left in the United States are so concerned about imperialistic ideals and blah, blah, blah. Yet they are actually the biggest imperialists in the world.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like their little version of reality that they developed in, Berkeley, California, basically. Like I just had I don't know if you watched my video from a few days ago called it was the point of the video was how Jordan Peterson uses the term postmodern neo-Marxist to describe the current incarnation of the left, and that's not an unapt description, but what it really is intersectional feminism. Like that, like postmodern neo-Marxism is how we got to intersectional feminism, which is for whatever reason. The female is exonerated as like she's supposed to be on top, but then everybody else who's a minority also counts a whole lot too, and that's currently what the monster is. And that and the female also isn't supposed to entirely be female. I have this joke: the feminist. What's feminist logic? Women are superior to men because non-binary. And it's like their whole little paradigm system, it defies everything everybody in no matter what language you are, no matter where you are, none of their shit makes sense. Like they like to imagine that there's some culture out there that like was naturally intersectional feminists until European colonialists came along and ruined everything. That's literally not true at all and never has been, period. And so they invented their little thing in their little like privileged white people land, mostly. Like that's mostly the people who came up with this crap, with a few, token like crazy black ladies like Bell Hooks, who's just a wacko. Bell Hooks is an absolute wacko. And then they decided that literally everybody all across the world has to be this way. And now it's infecting Sweden.
Yeah, precisely. And not only that, I mean, if you just take, for instance, the status of women here in Sweden, something you have to understand that from a historical perspective, women in Scandinavia and the Nordic countries has always been pretty equal if you compare to the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And that's because of necessity. hence why feminism has always had a kind of proto-grasp here, I would say. Because, I mean, our climate doesn't really forgive us if we're going to have gender-specific things. A woman in the old days were supposed to know how to slaughter an animal as well as she was going to know how to plant some vegetables and sewing and stuff. So, I mean, this mentality, we simply don't really have this gender-specific mentality that perhaps you in the Anglo-Saxon speaking will have. So, and so they actually try to actually imply that Swedish men and culture is really, it's just as awful as the ones you find in Islamic countries, which is utterly false.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Even in God of War, the game, he his wife was a warrior in the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. What was I gonna? I had something.
And also another real interesting thing, and well, not nothing. What's it called? Observation. Is actually, you know, the left in the United States and their liberal use of the word Nazi. This is really odd for us Europeans to actually grasp, because when we look upon Trump, I'm sorry to any Republicans listening or Trumpists, we just find him to be just an idiot. We don't find him to be a Nazi because we know what Nazism is, and it's not pretty. The left of the United States needs to just shut up and stop using these buzzwords so liberally, because in Europe it's a real thing. We actually experienced it. And so, I mean, and we also experienced totalitarianism from communism, which is kind of funny. My fiance, for instance, is actually a refugee from the communist regimes, for instance.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
the idea of equating American Republicans with Nazis, it's so inappropriate. And here's the thing about Trump: I can absolutely see why even most Americans, or I don't know most, but a large percentage of Americans, a huge percent would think he's just a complete moron. But the method of what Trump does and how he behaves, it only makes sense within the hyper-specific context of current American pop culture. Like, if you are somebody who grew up constantly watching reality television and understands pop cultural references, American stuff, Trump is the living king of all of that crap, and he's weaponizing. Like, the thing is, the left thought that they were cool. They thought that they were funny. They thought that conservatives were lame. And Trump was like, you know what? I'm fucking funnier than you. I'm cooler than you. I'm gonna embarrass all of you. I'm gonna make everyone laugh at Hillary Clinton when I say, yeah, you're lucky I'm not president because you'd be in jail. And everyone laughs and shit like that. And it's like a theater show. And if you're American, you're like, you start to see why people like him, but like from the outside, it's like, what the hell is this crazy person running a country? But it's a specific context, and so I can see why.
I mean, do you think it'd be like if? Do you think it'd be like if RuPaul had been president?
Oh, that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
If
for some reason, like let's say, like okay, I make fun of that Jeff Lavelle guy. I don't know who's a really fucking, let's say fucking Dan Savage somehow became president and was
my god, no.
Yeah, like Dan Savage was running for president, and he was gonna, like, make every kid in school learn gay sex education along with straight sex education. And RuPaul just was like, you know what? I used to be a Democrat and I used to be friends with you, Dan, but you are fucking going too far. I'm going to run against you and embarrass your ass. And so that would be the equivalent of like what Donald Trump is to Hillary Clinton. And that's why he's in office. So.
Well, I mean, if I just take it from a European perspective, we don't really understand how Trump could actually become in office. But then we just kind of like shake our heads and say, Americans, and then we just move on with our lives.
Yeah. My half sister lives in Germany, so I understand. Like, she's lived there for like over 20 years probably. So it's like she just doesn't get it, and I have to explain to her. I'm like, well, here's the thing. No matter what you say about Trump, the one thing nobody can deny is that whatever he's doing with, like, you know, tweeting all the time, his like social media, he was the first president to effectively use social media himself. And so, like, you cannot understand him, but at the same time, now everybody has to pay attention to social media, and they have to really pay attention ever since Trump. And he was the president that made that happen. And so
he is also the first president to actually weigh in on specific issues on something like that. Like, I think Donald Trump would probably be the only person who would tweet, like, who himself would tweet at people on specific issues instead of just issuing what we get from presidents before, which were just sort of bland things said through a spokesperson, but never felt like the president himself commenting on an issue.
Yeah, I don't think Obama ever actually just sat there tweeting himself. I think that everything that came from the President Obama Twitter account was like orchestrated by a little PR team. And but Trump, you can tell he is just sitting there all like, you know what? Yeah, you know, like, so.
All I have to say is this: he kind of gives me hope, you know, because he's like 70 what years old, and he gets technology.
Yeah,
I'm like, damn, I can't even get my mother to, you know, program the microwave. So I mean, this is a huge step.
Well, let's not forget also that his Twitter account is actually considered a public forum now. But that's
well, you know, the best way to describe it, I think that Rubin, some guest on the Rubin Report came up with this as the metaphor. So imagine there was a china shop, right? Like the bowl in the china shop metaphor. Imagine there was a china shop, and there's about 5 things in that china shop that we just need to destroy really, really bad. Like they just got to go. You have to just smash them. Well, the best thing to do would be to send in the perfect panther that could just, you know, smash all of that stuff. But unfortunately, all we really got was a crazy rhinoceros. But that rhinoceros is Trump, and he's smashing the shit. So, okay, he's smashing some other stuff too, but he's smashing it. It's getting done, and that's what we got, and that's what we have to settle for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just personally, I don't really care if who Trump is and what his president is, because I'm not American.
Yeah.
Not by far. I mean, I only see it through like this. Sure, he does have a few points, and he has some faults. But again, he's not my president. He's not my what's it called, head of state. So that's why I don't really care. And besides, no offense, but you Americans actually needed Trump because
someone to kick people in the teeth. We really have we've never had a politician that would actually use shade in like such a blatant way. But
certainly not in our lifetimes.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's a unique phenomenon.
Yeah. Not to mention that some of the stuff he's doing is making like every end of the political spectrum just contort and bend back into itself. Like, what is it with the NAFTA renegotiations? Or that he got like Mexico to agree to, like, yeah, you have to have higher wages for us to even consider it a Mexican product. And the left is like, the Atlantic's going on about how bad that is. It's like, really? You're the free trade for everybody, or fair trade, or whatever morons, and you're like, no, it's horrible. Don't do this.
They actually got upset about the fact that Trump got the Mexican government to agree to pay its workers more.
Yeah. No, they've gotten upset about literally everything. Like when he negotiated treaties with North Korea, they were mad. They found a way to be mad about that. And like,
he could cure cancer, and they would probably find some way to say that the cure was problematic or it wasn't being ethically distributed or something.
They'll say that he only did that to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of politicians, we're actually having election on Sunday here. So we're actually going to elect our new government. I don't know if you probably heard, and Queens, you were actually on this topic about the Muslim immigration and stuff.
Yeah,
we have actually had a socialist government for 4 years now, which has been devastating with the Swedish economy. It's not as bad as Venezuela, but I mean it has been pretty bad. Our economy has just become stale, and basically they have fucked it up real bad. And the funny thing is that gay guys were like in the United States, pushed to actually vote for the left. However, this changed about 10 years ago when actually the government shifted again to the right-wingers, or the blue bloc, as we call them, when actually the Conservative Party actually went ahead for marriage equality. And then gay guys start to actually shift towards being right-wingers. So this trend that we're seeing, and you are actually a part of this, has been going on in Sweden for about a decade or so. And this is why I'm not really that surprised when we actually see that gay guys in the United States are actually going to the right-wingers nowadays, with Milo Yiannopoulos in the spearheading of the thing, etc. So I mean, I'm not really surprised. And we're in Swedish society, we actually become so equal. I know this is a hard thing for you Americans to grasp. We have become so equal in our social standing towards any group, really, that we can actually start to become conservative, which has freaked the left out here in Sweden, because now we're actually criticizing them a lot more than perhaps what the other groups in society does. So we're actually seeing a trend here that gay guys are actually moving towards the right, and they're actually moving back to their country, to the countryside where they actually grew up, instead of like moving into the bigger cities, etc.
Quick question to clarify for the viewers: what would a conservative in Sweden stand for? Considering, I'm just saying, because conservatives in this country are more to the right than even the UK's conservatives.
Actually, if you compare it to conservatives in the United States, I would say that they're probably like Democrats. Just your general Democrat in general.
Are you talking about like
in the United States terms?
Are you talking about the older Democratic Party that was a bit?
I'm talking Obama Democrats, so to say. Yeah, I know. I don't know really a lot about American politics. So
I guess I think what Bacon might be asking is, what are the social stands of conservatives in Sweden?
Like, what would like if they're like what on issues, like how do they stand? Because I mean, conservative to us is privatize everything and just tell everyone to fuck off. That's kind of conservatism in this country.
Well, it's kind of like that, but it's a lot more socialist, so to say. I mean, a conservative standpoint in Sweden would be like, well, how about that we cut the taxes and actually do our government more efficient and just get rid of different offices and authorities and everything, and just make it more efficient. And how about actually give entrepreneurs more freedom in terms of laws and just promote business. And also, sure, I mean, some family politics is kind of like this, and also you have this that it's not very, and the conservatives in Sweden don't really think that you need to actually have a mandatory law that says that the man and a woman in a straight marriage, for instance, when they get a child, that they actually have to split their child's vacation. I'm not sure what the term is in American.
Benefits.
Well, child leave, I guess.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So you don't really have to split it equally between the two parents. You can actually choose yourself within your family who wants to stay with the children more and who wants to stay less with them. It's up to the family to decide. That's more or less like the conservative standpoint in Sweden.
They sound like libertarians, kind of.
Yeah, ish. I would say so. And then we have then we got the
I'll let you finish, then I'll shit on libertarians for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's you cannot really translate conservatism in Sweden into American, because
it's for an entirely different country.
Yeah, well, you also got to deal with Sweden's kind of accepted that having some social programs is a good thing, and our conservatives are still against that for some reason.
It's just, again, a different infrastructure. I love the idea, though, of the country being overrun with conservative homosexuals, though. Like it's actually
really funny, and I'm actually part of the movement. I mean, for instance, I'm going to vote on this Sunday, and I'm actually going to vote for the Christian Democrats. Yes, they're Christian. Yes, and they were supposedly the more conservative party in Swedish politics in former years. But now that has actually shifted. They've become more or less like, you know what, honey, you do whatever you want. Just with Christian ethics, so to say, but not homophobic ethics. Just, really humanistic Christian classical morality, so to say.
That sounds terrible. I just can't imagine living under that. I'm winking really wildly, by the way. That just really doesn't. That sounds just pleasant.
That sounds like The Handmaid's Tale, the feminist favorite book, and I get why. It's very bland and easy to follow.
Oh, speaking of Christianity.
Yeah.
I was going to say this earlier. Benjamin Boyce had a really interesting interview with a woman who is a academic who studies the history of Christianity. And she just published a book. And one of the things that she made a big point in saying is that, there's all sorts of different interpretation, like linguistic interpretations of Christianity. Like, it's not like the English language dominated.
The King James Bible, so to say.
Yeah. It's not like the King James Bible is like the only Bible. There was all sorts, like there was like the entire, I don't like the Roman Empire Bibles was like not all in Christian, like they were not all in English, obviously, and that was like a huge thing. And so, she studies like the different traditions and like their version of the whole Christ story. And one of the things that she says is that like feminists have just completely revised the history of Christianity to fit their own narrative, where supposedly, according to feminists, it's this horrible patriarchal religion, and it's because it's all about men. Where that's actually not true. Especially in some traditions, Mary was a really, really, really big deal. Like she was supposed to be God's most perfect creation, and I don't know exactly like. Oh, and Jesus was actually like part of like he was God. He was a man that was God on earth. But Mary was a creation of God, and she was the most perfect thing that could have ever existed. And then feminists, she's like, yeah, and then some feminists took it a step further and tried to say that according to the Christian religion, Mary was raped by God. God raped Mary because he put that baby in her, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, except that's not even true. If you study Christian history, in a lot of the texts, there's a whole story about God coming to Mary and asking her if she was willing to be the mother of this child, and he waited for her consent. Like that was always there.
Yeah, that's actually the story I was told as a kid, and that's what it says in the Swedish Bible. So, okay. I mean, it's really odd to me to actually hear that feminists are actually implying that she was raped, because that's not the way we were taught the Bible.
It's an immaculate conception, but I guess they're saying that it's rape because it was without consent, basically. But as we were just saying, there was consent.
And that really doesn't fit with a lot of the stories from the Apocrypha, or the New Testament Apocrypha,
ultimately, they're saying it's rape because there was a man involved.
Well, yeah, except not really.
But they'll also tell you that God's not a man, but for the moment he is, I guess.
They're really just having issues with a lot of the really old school parts, which are rooted in like a kind of Judaism that is so orthodox that it doesn't even exist anymore, except maybe in like Jerusalem. But that's not the broader context. Like they always want to go on about how the Abrahamic religions are, inherently patriarchal and denigrate women.
Don't forget, Islam is the most feminist religion in the world. Don't forget.
It's funny though, because it's times like these when you start thinking about these profound philosophical questions of like world religion, and then because they're shaming Christianity for having Mary choose to willingly give birth to basically a male child. And it's like assuming that maybe the feminists just didn't know that, and they probably didn't, because feminists aren't smart at all. Like they're dumb people that don't actually read, they don't study history, they don't study history of religion, they don't understand the origin stories of like the different interpretations.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that feminists are just like kind of intellectual trolls that have just become
I don't know. Let me finish this thought. Okay, so when you start asking these philosophical questions, you start to really wonder. It's like, you know, those crazy seeming, when at least they seemed crazy when you were a kid, those what we would have called Bible thumpers, that some sort of like Pat Robertson type person, who would be saying, you know, oh, feminism is Satan and it's going to bring the fall of humanity. But it's like, you start to look at it and it's like, well, what else do they want? Because it's like they're trying to say that even a child that was put into a mother without having sex with a man, that's somehow bad. And they also say that all heterosexual sex is rape. And like, you know, people would say, oh, well, that's just Andrea Dworkin, who said that all heterosexual sex between a man and a woman, all sex between a man and a woman is rape. But Andrea Dworkin was actually very well respected and is quoted by the current living matron saint of feminism, who is Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks looked up to Andrea Dworkin, quotes her in her books. So it's that mentality obviously can't have gone away entirely, you know? And so it's like, do they just want humans to stop existing? Because it really sounds like that's literally what they want. Like, they actually want to end civilization. Like, maybe they would say, like, oh, women, we should figure out a way for women to breed without men entire. But it's like, do they really even think that that's possible, or do they just want to end civilization? It kind of looks like they just want to end civilization.
It's just nihilism.
Really, yeah. I think that is the case. I don't think that most of them are self-aware to that point.
It's like it's like they've become. You know what it is? Feminism is. It's really not much like a virus. It's kind of like a radioactive isotope. Like, if a person is exposed to it long enough, they literally not only get literal cancer, but they become a emitter of cancer because they've become they've been made themselves radioactive. And
actually, I mean, when it comes to feminism, I mean, the GGTOW movement, and I have to back this up now. Actually, I actually got some friends who are TERFs here in Sweden, and I'm not sure if you know what that is. All of you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we know TERFs.
I know the political TERFs. Like, I know the ones who are active, and they actually have a very specific purpose within the feminist movement, which is to get transgender out of transgender active. They don't want the feminist budget going to transgender activism. They want it back for cisgender women, and so that's what the TERFs are doing. But like, I wouldn't be inherently against somebody who just happens to be a radical, or like a feminist woman who doesn't consider trans women and that's part of their thing. Like, I could probably have a conversation with somebody who's not like a crazy political activist.
Well, see, here is actually very funny because I showed all the GGTOW videos that you produced and everything to these TERFs, and they actually love this stuff. They actually agree with us a whole lot, which is actually very funny. The only thing that yeah, and I mean, I guess it's because in Sweden, even women are actually tired and fed up with this current feminist narrative, and they're actually, you know, they're actually longing for the good old days when straight women and gay guys actually just became drunk together. Yeah. So
yeah, well, the new version is it literally is just communism, where Joseph Stalin has a female head. That's all it is. Like, Joseph Stalin's head was cut off, but it grew back. It grew back, and now it's like a female. I don't know exactly who it is. Maybe it's Bell Hooks.
So you're saying that it's Hydra?
Yeah, more or less. I would kind of agree on that. But anyways, you know, guys, I'm not leaving you. I just need to actually take a cigarette. Because yes, okay. So I'll be right.
Wait, real quick before you go.
Yep.
Have you made a GGTOW video?
No, not yet. I'm actually just recording some stuff, and because Feral and Arcats, you're doing like the practical stuff, and as you as well, Greens, of course. But I actually take this from an entirely different perspective because I'm doing this more in a historically narratively way, and I will get to that why in a moment when I'm
cool. I just want to know if I want to know if you already had something that I should be putting on the playlist. But yeah, tell us about what you're coming up with when you get back.
Yes. Okay. Give me about 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Be right back.
Fantastic conversation.
Yeah, he's
no doubt.
Yeah, he made a video. Prince, you're right. He did make a video a while ago, but I don't believe that channel is around anymore.
I watched one or two of his videos when my mom was like getting some sort of, she was getting some operation, and I had to like be the person that picked her up, you know. And so I was waiting, and I watched one or two, and I was like in this like medical waiting room, so I had to put it on really low volume and hold it up to my ear because I didn't have headphones, and it was kind of awkward. So and then he speaks with a bit of an accent, and so I wasn't exactly sure what he was talking about, but I kind of remember it. But it was kind of a weird listening, you know.
I will tell you guys, like I made some artwork for Nepenthes when we first met, because we've been friends for a while now, and when he does get his channel up, I definitely hope that you'll all check it out. Like, he is such a smart man, and it's just such a wonderful thing to see GGTOW and the show expanding, as far as not because we want to be popular, but because it's just great to have all these different conversations that I don't think a lot of us were. I didn't feel safe having these conversations before, not to talk about safety excessively, but it's great that we have, that we have a group of people. I mean, the GGTOW is a sphere now, and it's expanding.
Yeah. No, it's funny, I have a local friend in Seattle. I've probably talked about this on air, but he decided that he was fed up with, the intersectionals himself, and he used to kind of be one. And so he knew of a few other guys that were also fed up, or never were into it at all. And so he invited us over to his house, and there was like 5 of us total, which is kind of, for like Seattle, like 5 gay guys hanging out and being like, oh my God, we hate feminists. Like it's kind of a big deal, and so, we're all there and we're having these conversations. And then there's literally a guy who, it's so funny because it's like, our entire point is that we aren't allowed to have these conversations. And it's this horrible, literally oppressive environment where like the spaces that we used to be free in are now heavily patrolled from the within, like in some sort of weird, Stalinist fashion. Like it's like North Korea, like your neighbors are tattling on you if you do something wrong. And so we're trying to like talk about how that environment, and there's this other guy there who's not invited. He was not invited to this event. The only reason he was there is because apparently some crap where he like got into like a physical altercation with one of his roommates, so he had to be staying at my friend's house. And so there's this guy who's like not there, who apparently is like full-blown fucking like brainwashed wacko. And so we're just trying to be like, yeah, so blah blah blah, feminists, they're crazy, they lie about us all the time, they say that like we grope women, like, and they invade our spaces and then they take them over. And he literally just starts like literally yelling and like I was the one who was talking the most because I had the most to say, obviously. He literally just keeps interrupting me and yelling, being like, what are you talking about? Who are these people? I don't know. I've never run into it's not, no, and feminists don't hate men. They just hate patriarchy. No one's telling you that you can't have your space. No one's telling you blah 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 blah, like over and over. And it was like, you are literally exactly what we're talking about. You weren't, and my friend yelled at him over and over. You weren't invited here. I don't even like you, because I think he's actually friends with his roommate. Like my friend, like I don't even think my friend is actually really friends with this guy. And so my friend kept saying over and over, like, why you weren't invited to this? I don't like you. Please leave. And then the guy would stare at him for a second, and then he'd start laughing. Like he thought that my friend wasn't serious, but it happened like 5 times. And eventually my friend just like started hitting him on the shoulder. And then he was like, don't hit me. And he left. And it was just this like radically crazy thing, because it was like, there was 5 people, and all of us were like, as soon as he left, like they were like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck that guy's problem is, because literally everything you are saying is true. I have heard feminists make the claim that gay men are constantly groping them, and I feel like I'm not allowed to talk about this stuff. Like all this stuff that, and then we have a literal example of the exact oppressive bullshit that we have to deal with, which we were trying to escape from in a private party at a private residence. There happened to be a crasher to just come and prove our point even then. But he was out.
Guys, by the way.
He was dramatically outnumbered, and he didn't get to have his way. But like somehow in his twisted little head, he thought that he was entitled to yell at us and like basically shut down our event. Like he thought that maybe that like he's like, no, patriarchy harms men too. Fuck off. Shut up. Blah. And it's like, you weren't even invited. The only reason you're here is because your roommate fucking hates you too, and he beat you up.
Well, what I was gonna say about that guy is after he left, he probably did the pod people shriek into a cell phone.
Yeah, something like that. That's the climate that most gay guys like. I legitimately feel that people who feel this way and are starting to admit it to themselves in the gay male community have to be the majority, but the loud ones don't understand that they're not, like the loud ones think that they're the majority and they think that they're winning. Nobody told them that they're losing and that there's less of them, and so they're going to continue to be loud, and then things like social media companies collude with them to make them think that they're in the majority, so they can just literally unperson Alex Jones, just try to scrub him from the internet, and then Marco Rubio can be on NBC being confronted by Alex Jones, who is like one of the biggest political commentators in human history in terms of reach. Like, he's way bigger than Rush Limbaugh ever was. He is one of the biggest reasons why Trump is in office, ultimately. And Marco Rubio pretended to NBC that he didn't know who Alex Jones was. And Alex Jones was like, oh, you know who I am. Yeah, look at this little guy lying. Oh, yeah, so you know who I am. I'm Alex Jones. I got millions and millions of followers. Go back to the bathhouse. What, did you just threaten me? Did you just threaten me, Rubio? And Rubio just sits there having to be like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know. And then to the point where Rubio tears up. You can see it in his eyes that he's terrified because he knows exactly who Alex Jones is, but he has to pretend he doesn't. Because somebody or other would give Rubio the JFK treatment or something. I don't know. I mean, that's obviously taking it very, very far.
Is the tinfoil slipping on a little bit at the moment?
No, but the climate of like it's spread so far. This like censorship, this like pretending that reality doesn't exist, even though we can all see it. And there's some people who play along with the make-believe, and it's spread so far that even Republicans like Rubio are in on this little let's play make-believe alternate reality. And he was willing to play make-believe on NBC and pretend that he didn't even know Alex Jones existed. Doesn't matter if you like Alex Jones or not. He knew he existed, and that's crazy. And so gay guys around the world are being demanded to play along with this gigantic game of make-believe. Like we're all supposed to, if we were at a gay bar and you ever admitted to watching Alex Jones sometimes, people would be like, why do you watch him? Why? And then you'd have to be like, well, I mean, I'm just researching my enemy. I mean, you'd have to say something like that, or like there might definitely be someone yelling at you. But then the majority of people who heard that exchange would probably be like, well, sometimes I look at Alex Jones too, just because I've been curious, but they would be terrified of saying anything. And that is the climate that we're living in. But here on the Gaytriarchy, we are allowed to talk about it internationally.
Speak of make-believe. I mean, something I was touching the subject a little bit before I went out for a smoke. We actually have this. Well, I assume all of you, what Stonewall was in the United States, right?
Yeah, we did a video about Stonewall.
Yeah.
Heard a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I meant with I said that I assume. But anyway, we actually had a similar thing. Um, but anyways, we actually had a similar situation here, which was called Socialstyrelsens trappa, or trappincidenten, which means the stair incident. It was because you have to actually go way back into the 70s, when homosexuality still was considered a mental illness here in this country, and this was in 1979, if I'm correct. So, anyways, what all the gay guys did, and note here, gay guys, not lesbians, not trans, not transgenders, etc. Gay men actually sat in the staircase, and blocked the entrance to this office, which is the social authorities. I'm not sure really what the American equivalent would be.
Would be
But
like
anyways,
a department or a ministry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, so recently, because we had Europride here in Sweden a couple of weeks ago, a month ago really, and there was actually this really angry trans individual who actually bought all of this crap with intersectionalism, and trans individuals did much more for gay men than blah 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 blah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. See, here's where she was faulting, and I actually sent this to Cats, because I was so furious. And you can actually just do a quick Google image search on this incident. You will not see a single trans individual in the picture. Not even.
I made a whole video about this. I have a thoroughly potent debunking video of the myth that Stonewall was headed by transgender women of color, which is what they say now.
Yeah.
No, and
So,
this wait, let me just. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I'll tell you about the video after you tell the story.
Yeah. Well, I've actually watched your video, so I know.
Did you watch the one? Did you watch the Sylvia Rivera one?
Yeah, I'm the Sylvia Riverio, I think.
Yeah, where it had footage of her saying, like, she literally said herself, she was like, Randy, you and I both remember when Stonewall happened, there was no lesbians getting arrested.
Yeah, precisely. And I mean, here's the funny thing, that then this trans individual actually accused gay people in general and lesbians to actually not being there for transsexuals at all, because of feelings, because of inappropriate, not inappropriate, because of falsified facts. And see, that's when my blood starts to boil, because I'm a history nerd. And so basically, the trans community here in Sweden are trying to actually emulate the American tactics with lying, which is kind of weird. Because I mean, I don't think they realize that Sweden is not America. We actually want facts here before we say anything.
Well, here's the thing: Americans do too. Like that was this whole, like, by and large, most Americans do want facts, and like it's this small subset of people who decided that they're fine with make believe, and
I think he might be saying that, like, maybe like because in America, people will be, I think, unlikely to say that they want to offend someone, and that, like, whoever's the loudest seems to get the say about who and what, even if it makes no sense.
Precisely. Thank you. But when it comes to all of this, I mean, when it comes to the trans individuals here in Sweden, I mean, they are actually trying to impose laws and ethics and everything within the gay community to actually cater to their needs. I mean, pretty much like what you guys have been saying, that they are trying to actually get into our spaces. When in fact we have always kind of welcomed them. I mean, the gay community or LGBT community in general in Sweden has always been really tightly knit together, because I mean, let's face it, Sweden is not a huge country in terms of population.
How many people live in Sweden?
About 10 or 11 million.
Oh my goodness, that's
it's a country the size of California,
but with like a quarter of its population.
Yeah.
Well,
so
okay, sorry.
Yeah, I was finished.
Okay, so I've actually been I've written a short version of this, but I think I could actually write a longer version of this type of attitude, and I could find actually if you guys want to help me find clips from small transgender channels to illustrate this attitude. The idea of the transgender person as the queer aristocrat. Because that's how they act.
Yeah.
Like when you get into the, like, it's gotten to the point where these are people that believe in every part of their, that they deserve to be the privileged class within LGBT environments. And they've gotten really used to it. They've gotten really fucking spoiled. Like they think like, stop the show. We're in a gay space, or whatever you would call it. Like we're in a space that's not for straight people. Therefore, that means that we listen to the voices of the most oppressed. Therefore, I'm in charge.
We must be elevated.
Yeah, no, and it's so obvious that that there's certain people who really, really take advantage of that privilege and demand that literally every place be like that. And it's a really messed up mentality, and I haven't written I guess I haven't even thought it through entirely, like why I think this happens, but I do know that it's not the pathology itself isn't something that transgender people just kind of came up with by themselves. Like what I think it really, really is it's feminists, cisgender women, weaponizing these poor trans people by playing with their insecurities. And so what they do is they tell the trans people, like, so here's the thing. Obviously, as a transgender woman, unless you're like Blair fucking White, you're never really going to be comfortable around straight people, and you're never really going to be comfortable around gay people, because people can tell that you're trans generally, and like with people who have gender dysphoria, it's worth it to live presenting as a man or a woman. But most of them did not want to be. It's not like it was this choice where they were like, yay, I'm just going to do this. They felt like they had to, because it was going to make them more comfortable, right?
We actually have a word for it in Swedish among gay guys, and that's called trans, which literally means trans ridiculousness, more or less.
but okay, so but like I'm talking about like real normal like trans people, right? And then but then like you transition if you're trans, and then you end up realizing that heterosexual people do not see you as a woman, for example, right? They don't look at you and see woman. They see, oh, is this some gay guy in drag? And they're like, no, I'm trans, blah, blah, blah. They have to have that conversation 5 million times, right? And then they go into gay spaces. They have to have the same conversation. They're like, oh, are you a drag queen? No, I'm not. I'm, I'm trans. And so they have to have that conversation 5 million times. And the trans person really, really gets sick of it. And ultimately, they have to learn that unless they pass, unless they are going to actually, unless they transition and they end up looking like Blair White, they're always going to get that. They will always get that shit. And it's never going to go away no matter where you go. But the messed up thing is that feminists start making promises to these trans people. And they say, no, that's not true. You should never have to be misgendered. You should never have to be made insecure. And I will be the one who will make it that way with intersectionality. And you hang out with me, and I will make sure you never have to experience that again. And so they band together, and they use that poor, insecure trans person to be their loud, aggressive little champion warrior of types, where
like child soldiers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Actually, what it is I one of these days I make a video about this. I think that the feminists, for you Deep Space Nine fans out there, the feminists are the Dominion. Specifically, they are the changelings, and they use the transgender community like the Jem'Hadar. They keep them weak and dependent on them because they can just throw them like cannon fodder because as people, basically as possessions. They don't
Tetracell, some potent shit, yeah.
Yeah, and so these trans people have been fed this lie, which is that there's ever going to be a time when everybody forgets that they're trans. No, there will never be that time unless you perfectly pass as a cisgender person. And you have to take that into account before you decide to transition. That is all that there is to it. If you like, it's the same thing if you're a homosexual. When you realize that you're a homosexual, you have, and every gay guy goes through this. You're like, am I sure that I don't want the pussy? Like, I'm gonna look at some porn magazines of women. I'm gonna like try to imagine fucking that. Nope, I just can't do it. And then you realize, okay, I have to be a gay guy. I have to accept everything that comes along with that. Well, if you realize that you are trans and that you have to transition, you have to accept everything that comes along with that, which might mean that you don't pass. And you have to be prepared for that. And anybody that tells you, oh, but you don't have to pass to be trans and be comfortable, just hang out with us. Fuck that person. That person is toxic. Don't ever hang out with them. Because anybody who tells you that, like, who encourages you to put yourself in a position where, like if you're trying to pass and somebody says, well, you don't have to, to fuck if I do, this is my personal choice. I'm trying to pass. That was the reason why I transitioned. And if some feminist is telling you, oh, well, you can be a transgender woman and you don't have to shave. No, you can be a fucking useful idiot for feminists and be a transgender woman who doesn't shave, but you will always have to hang out with other feminists if you are going to actually do that. You can't assimilate into the gay world. You can't assimilate into the straight world unless you try to actually pass. And so, yeah.
Well, I can just say a few Swedish slurs that we use within the gay community when it comes to trans, and these ones are actually quite transphobic. But we actually, when trans individuals are trying to become really politically blah 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 and start to actually impose their ideologies on us, some gay men has actually started to call them, and I will translate this, fake fitta, which means literally fake pussy. And
oh my god, it's like calling them the plastics from Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Oh god, you just made me feel less gay.
And also and some gay guys are actually starting to actually say this about transsexual men as well, and they call them just muskkuk, which means worm dick.
Oh
my god!
Oh, that must be the. I'm cringing myself. That's like getting kicked in the balls. Like,
I want to have one for.
balls?
I'm grinning maliciously.
No, I want to have a slang word for transgender, like female to male trans guys who get on testosterone and think that they're tough guys all of a sudden, like think that they're gonna fight like a cisgender dude because they never have. Like they're like, oh yeah, you want to step outside? I don't think that you do. I think that you should actually shut up because you're about to get your ass whooped.
I think part of it is they don't understand how to regulate those impulses. I mean, it's a whole new world for them.
Yeah, but there should be a word for that. So.
Well, we actually do kind of have one. We call them, hönstup, which means literally hen rooster.
Oh my god! You know what? That actually translates perfectly. Like
it's perfect.
I can totally see calling someone like, "Oh my god, she's such a hen rooster."
Wait, but how do you say it in Swedish again?
Sorry?
How do you say it in Swedish?
Hönstup.
Hönstup?
Okay. Okay. Pronounce höns like H, and then you take U with like a burn, like a really thick southern accent. The U in Hönstup.
Hönstup.
Yeah.
Hönstup.
Hönstup.
Yeah. And
it's like the reason you're sneezing. Hönstup.
Yeah, and the reason why we call them hönstup is actually because our intersectional word for he, well, Z or he, she, the gender neutral thing is actually spelled like hen in English. H-E-N. So it's kind of like a really weird wordplay in a way.
Okay.
So
is that sort of like how German, you say, like, I don't know German, but I do know that, like, one of them is like they have different gender addresses for like male and female, like Herr, right?
Yeah.
So would that be sort of like saying like Herr, but then taking one of the R's off and then making it something to do with her?
Yeah, precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, we actually say Herr as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so and hen is the fake gender neutral pronoun that they're.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because we actually did have one in the old days, which was called hin. It's H-I-N. But then the feminists tried to reinvent the language. So instead of using the old word hin, they want to use the word hen instead. Which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Why not just revive the old Swedish again instead? It's much easier because then we actually had true gender neutral language.
Probably because this what Jordan Peterson calls like post-Marxist neoliberal or
postmodern neo-Marxist.
Neo-Marxist, yes. Sorry, they want control, so they don't want you to. They don't want to use software terms. They don't want to use an open source solution that already exists. They want a proprietary solution that they can control.
We actually have our own gay slang when we actually are trying to, you got swings, bears, etc. We actually have our own words for it as well.
Tell us.
Yeah, like pugga. This is actually sort of like English in the start. That's actually the term for this old, really slimy, feminine, old gay guy. And yeah,
I found my people.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's actually it literally means more or less like something like a female pug.
Ew. Oh,
that's funny.
Swedish people are mean.
I'm loving this place more and more.
Yes.
Everything you're like the French, but in a different way. The French, everything sounds like really, like sophisticated and sensual, no matter what they're saying. The Swedish, everything sounds soft and cute, but it's really coarse. And
well, I'm just saying one thing. When we go to like kinky clubs in Sweden, when we're outside like dirty talking and everything, we're always doing it in English because if it would dirty talk in Swedish, it would sound ridiculous. So I mean, it's Swedish is a fun language. Our culture is really weird as well. We're actually kind of compared in Europe. We're actually compared to Japanese more or less because we got all of this kind of like social rules and everything that no one really gets, and it's just the way things are. So
you are. And also, you live geographically, geographically isolated, at least by distance and certain land masses and water. And you have kind of almost, Sweden was basically a very large island, for lack of a better term.
That's actually correct. That's actually the way historians view the way Swedes think and are in general. It's because of that we were so isolated. And so, sure, Scandinavia was what's it called, a peninsula, but we had enemies all surrounding us, so we kind of became an island.
Well, also you can't go to the far northern part of Sweden. Historically it must have been impossible, for without going at certain times of the year. That's an incredibly long distance. There's no food, there's ice most of the time, dangerous predators. You may have been technically a peninsula, but you were functionally an island.
Precisely. Oh, by the way, this is actually for feral. Your term in Swedish would kind of be like varulv, which means werewolf. Yeah.
And you're varun?
If you could only see the look on my face right now, it is pure, absolute rapture and joy.
You have found your people. And
but the rest of us would just be bögar, which means faggots.
Oh,
then that's yeah.
Is that what
That's rude.
Well, you've seen what I look like. Is that what I am too?
No, we would actually say björn, which means bear.
Ah, I'm a bear in both cultures.
Yeah.
I'm getting so much closer to being an otter, though. So.
Yeah.
No, bad cats.
And Prince, you would probably be kind of like.
But you haven't seen pictures of me, have you?
No, I haven't. But if I'm just going with your own descriptions of yourself, I would probably just say that you would be klubbög, which means club gay or gay.
I kind of probably was. Sort of to a sense, yeah, but not really. Like, it's weird. Like Katz has seen the old photos of me.
Yeah,
I didn't actually look like that.
No, but I said this. You hung out with that crowd, though.
Yeah. You've seen the party photos.
Yes, and I would say that Prince doesn't look like that, but he definitely kind of acted that way, or at least ran around with it.
Oh, I was always like, I was always the If anyone in the group was going to be mistaken for a straight guy, it was always going to be me. They'd be like, if I actually was telling Farrell about the attitude of the cunty gay San Francisco boys. Like they always do after parties. So you're standing outside. The bars close at 2. People are standing out there often till 2.
Why? We party at least at 4 o'clock.
Well, I don't know, dude. That's just how it is. That's how it is.
It's the puritanical roots of the country.
Yeah, basically everywhere in the country has what are called blue laws, where there's just random regulations on alcohol. Like in Utah, you can't buy any hard liquor on Sunday.
So, bars close at 2. In New York, they stay open until 4. But bars close at 2 in San Francisco. You're standing out on the sidewalk. They don't chase you away most of the time, so you can just sort of like stand there, smoking, and guys are like, some guys must be on coke or something because they're like chatting a bunch, and there'll be 7 or 8 guys, and they're really staying and chatting, and it turns out all of them want to go to an after party, but they're not sure whose house they're going to go over to, and not all of them know each other. Some of them know each other, and they're kind of looking around, and one of the guys is like saying, well, I could maybe host, but I don't know all of these guys, right? And they look around, and if one of the guys looks like maybe he's a straight guy or something, they'll be like, so like we could have people over, but like, who's that guy? Is he like straight or whatever? I would be the guy. And it's just because he can't actually hear me talk because I'm not talking for some reason. Like if I'm on my phone texting or something, they would think that maybe I was straight. And then I start, and they'd be like, oh no, he's my friend, Prince, come talk. And then I start talking. They're like, oh cool, yeah, you come over, it's cool. It's
okay.
Cool.
So in Swedish terms, sorry, I had to change it. So in Swedish terms, it would be called heterobög, which means heterosexual gay guy.
Oh my God, straight acting.
Not straight acting, straight looking. I think
straight looking. Yeah. Do you have gay face in Sweden?
What's that?
It's this like, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's universal, but have you guys have heard of gay face, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like where
certain facial characteristics and structures seem to be common among gay guys.
Yeah. But you look at some guy, and even without knowing like about that specific study or something, you would just say like, "Oh, that guy has gay face." And sometimes it's kind of an insult, depending who's using it. Sometimes it's not. But you look at a guy, and you like, that guy must be gay, even if he's got a woman. He's like, well, he's got gay face then, because.
Okay, no, we don't really have a term. But then again, if you go to Stockholm, I mean, every single American guy I know that has been to Sweden, they always say that all Swedish men look like gay guys. So, I don't know.
Also, that maybe that is where the gay face comes from. It actually comes from Sweden. Everyone, you heard it here on the Gaytriarchy. Major study. Give us a grant.
Well, I mean. Oh, by the way, I just have to say something. It's not Skarsgård, it's Skarsgård, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, the actor.
I love I love all of them pretty much. That's one family I would move into the Skarsgård. You said
Skarsgård.
Yeah. So for us Americans, the Skarsgård family, I would marry into that family because you've got a lot of multi-generational hotness in that family. But I'm digging it. Like the older brother, the younger brother, they have another brother. The father was actually pretty hot in the day too, but he's just so cool.
Oh, but by the way, here's actually a thing. You actually heard people from Minnesota saying their state name.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota.
Yeah. Do you know how we say it in Swedish?
How do you say it?
Minnesota.
So
it's very similar.
Minnesota.
Well, the area had a lot of northern
Minnesota.
Immigrants.
Yeah, precisely. So I mean, it's really funny.
It's such a Swedish thing to do, to leave like what a lot of Europeans considered like the frozen wasteland of the north, and then you find the one part of America that is most like that frozen wasteland in a whole new world.
Hey, they didn't pick Canada, even though Minnesota might as well be.
Yeah, I think from a weather point of view, they're basically the same,
more or less. But then again, I mean, I actually live in the south, but I live in the South Swedish Highlands. So I mean, I actually get really chilly for being this far south in Sweden. Yeah, that's kind of. We actually have blizzards here. It's kind of paralyzed the country the whole winter last season. We were supposed to actually be used to snow, which our system really weren't. Oh, by the way, we actually had this thing last winter, which was called feministic snow.
Feminist snow plowing. Yeah,
we heard about the feminist snow plowing. But
yeah, I actually have to explain this because I mean, it's really not really that fair, because if you knew where the model came from, then it would actually make more sense. But it doesn't really make sense in a city with 1 million inhabitants. You see, this, because I mean, this model of snowplowing actually originates from a really, really small town called Karlskoga, which is, I guess, around 30,000 individuals, which is quite big in Swedish terms.
That's a tiny city here.
Yeah. So and then it actually makes more sense that, okay, so yeah, you should probably do the street first so everyone can walk around and everything, because of efficiency. But then if you take this model and I mean, this small city has probably like 3 or 4 main streets, perhaps, if they're lucky. So yeah, then it doesn't really make much of a difference. But then if you go to Stockholm, for instance, where you have a lot of small alleyways, you have a lot of small streets and walkways and everything, then it doesn't really make sense.
And how many people live in Stockholm?
Sorry?
And how many people live in Stockholm, roughly?
Within the city itself, it's about 750,000. But in Storstockholm, which means the greater Stockholm area, it's approximately 1.2 million people, I guess.
Wow. So yeah, that's there's no reason at all to think that something that worked on a population of 30,000 would have no problems at all integrating to a population that is literally hundreds, thousands. I mean, yeah, it's like orders of magnitude bigger. It sounds like it would be like if we took, say, you said it was a big city, so it'd be kind of like if we took Berkeley, which is a semi-large city in America, especially if you include the greater area. So it's, in the hundreds of thousands, but not like hugely over that. And if we try to take a model that worked there and make it work in San Francisco, or no, in Los Angeles, or even in like New York, like some of our biggest cities, and it just wouldn't work.
Precisely. But anyways, you Quincy you started actually implying that we were going to talk about how it is living in a country with a lot of immigrants. It's really weird because this is a very fairly recent phenomena here in Sweden. I mean, sure, we always had like immigrants since the 50s and onwards, but they were mainly from Europe. But now, from the past like 20 years or something, there's been a lot of influx from the Middle East. And yeah, that has actually started to become a real problem here. And you were actually spot on when you were talking about that they don't want to integrate it anymore within Swedish society and everything. So yeah, that has been a problem for the past 10 years, I would say. And what it does is actually the left doesn't really want to touch the subject, and because they have this common thread of cultural relativism, which is really, really harmful for the Swedish society. Because, I mean, we always want to mimic the American system, like, the melting pot and everything. The problem is that works in a country which doesn't really have a long history. It doesn't really have a big, so to say, basic culture, so to say, or basic history. But it doesn't work in a country like Sweden. It doesn't. But still, we want to emulate Americans as much as we can, because you're seen as the role model, so to say, within Swedish society. So that's actually is kind of weird, and that has actually started to become a huge problem. So what we see now in Sweden when it comes to immigration is that nowadays, finally, people have started waking up and start to realize that, you know what, this isn't really healthy. Because we had a lot of riots and everything, and you see, you have this problem with neighborhoods in the United States being burned down and etc. We don't really have that problem per se, but we do have a problem with people throwing rocks at police forces and ambulance workers, etc. So that has become a huge problem, because the criminals want to actually get rid of Swedish society in general. They want to actually make a Somalia 2.0 version.
Well, there's actually a very, very specific reason why the left has this like supposed cultural relativism thing. Cultural relativism was probably invented as a way to, it was probably an invention with the explicit purpose of making excuses for Islam. And the reason why that happened, I've been reading this book called Unholy Alliance, written by David Horowitz, which honestly, if people need to, if someone wants to understand why it is that the left makes apologies for Islam, this should be the cornerstone of all of it. This would be, a very, very, this would be the starting point, you could teach an entire semester at college based around this book, and then supplementary readings just to illustrate the point, because it talks about so the left it's just rebranded communism. That's all it is. It's the same people.
Of course.
It's Western communists who, once they realized that communists led to the death, communism leads to death and destruction. Most American communists sort of gave it up and were like, okay, we shouldn't be. But some of them decided not to, and some of them doubled down on their communist beliefs. And the reason why, and this is explained in the book with quotes, he quotes certain people. The mentality is that they know that communism doesn't work, but they still think it's better than capitalism, because they firmly believe that, they don't understand that, they don't seem to understand that capitalism is actually just, a pragmatic, natural selection. Capitalism happened naturally because people like trading things, and it was a convenient way to trade things. They think that capitalism is some sort of a abomination of the natural of reality, which is
it's a computer virus or something.
Yeah, and it's like no. Capitalism is just what happens. That's just what people do, is trade, and then they agree upon a universal currency so that trading's easier. The end. That's But Marxists, they think of the world as white. That there was this historic evil, which was the white male European patriarchy colonialists, and they supposedly invented capitalism. and sort of spread it to the world, and they are the dominant order, and they continue to rape and pillage in the name of capitalism. That is how they see the actual world, and there's been entire books that have been written to recreate reality to make it look like that is the case. One of the big books, one of the heavy hitters in the leftist pathology, and this is a book that I grew up in the radical left high school that I went to. All the dumbass kids told me that I had to read this book, and it was kind of like one of these things. I never read the book because everybody who told me that I had to read it was such an idiot that I was like, you know what, I'm going to specifically not read that book because everybody that tells me that it changed their life is a moron, and so I'm not going to read it. The book is called The People's History of the United States of America.
Oh my God, I've read that.
Yeah, and the People's History of the United States.
Brain cells.
Well, the fucked up thing about it is that, like, I don't know if he says all that many things that are just absolutely completely 100% true. It's a little bit more of lying by omission. So it's like he mentions, you know, he basically, and he says at the beginning, I'm not interested in writing a book that, you know, you think of in terms of what you think of as history. I'm interested in writing a book. He says that he's not interested in historical accuracy. He's interested in portraying European colonialists for the evil that they are. And so he revises history to make it sound like, you know, the Native Americans were this perfectly peaceful people until the white people came and genocided them. And then also the white people, you know, did all this slavery on America and blah 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 blah, and he makes it sound like America is just this rotten place. He doesn't compare it to anything. He doesn't talk about, you know, how warlike the Native Americans actually were themselves. He doesn't talk about the fact that, you know, the slave trade was actually run by Africans who were selling other Africans to white people. He doesn't mention the fact that Cuba, just the island of Cuba, which is communist, because the guy who wrote this is a fucking communist, Cuba imported more slaves than all of continental America. Period.
And here's the funny thing.
I did not know that.
Yeah. No, yeah. If you go on, there's an animated sequence of all the different slave ships and over the course of the 400 years that the slaves were imported, you'll see that like a buttload of them just go straight to Cuba, like more than go to the U.S. And that's why Cuba, if you actually go there, is very, very mixed race. Like there's all sorts of, you know, people with very, very curly hair and people who are just full on black, and but even a lot of like very mixed looking people, and that's just what Cuba is like. And so there's this total like weird Americanist revision. Like it's like they try to revise communism to make it make sense in an American perspective. So first they did that, and they're trying to like apply all of this stuff to make it seem like America's evil, and it was Americans themselves who were doing this, and they know that communism doesn't work, but they figure that they gotta do something. They gotta organize around something in order to stop America. So they literally think that even if they made America into some sort of, you know, communist like state, like they don't even really have a plan. None of them actually have a plan, and they admit to that. But they figure they want to topple the capitalist government just because that will lead to America stopping all of the murder in all of the foreign countries that allegedly we go and murder people in. Now, so that keep that in mind. That's their mentality, and there's lots of quotes to prove it in this book. Then, Islam. The Islamic Revolution of Iran really kicked a lot of this stuff off, and that happened in the 70s. And in
1979 to be precise.
Yes. And so when the Islamic Revolution happened in Iran, a number of the scholars in the area, I think it was Iranian scholars and some other people, maybe in Afghanistan, maybe in neighboring countries, they started rebranding Islam, like they might have even been taking cues from the Marxists, and they started, instead of like Islam used to, it translates into the religion of submission. So it had this very proud, thing about it, where like, we are the strong, we will make everyone buckle under Islam. And that's sort of, in the religion. However, since the 1970s, they rebranded themselves as these global victims, and the new radical Islamists are motivated by this notion that the Islamic people are oppressed, right? And so they had a natural it's almost as if they were doing it to appeal to the Marxists. And once they started having that, they started speaking the same language. The Islamic people said, hey, we're oppressed over here. And the Marxists say, well, we care about the oppressed. And then they started, more and more, they would have meetings like UN conventions that were designed to, basically roll out the red carpet for the Islamists and roll out the red carpet for like Fidel Castro. And they would all meet and talk about how capitalism is evil together. And so they actually started kind of coming up with that stuff. And
actually, the organization you're referring to is actually called the Mujahideen, which are pretty strong in Iran, but they were like kicked out. You can actually see this victim mentality. This is actually a Shia phenomenon. It's not really a Sunni phenomenon, but it's a Shia. The problem is that the Islamic Revolution started in Iran, and Iran is a Shia Muslim country. So they had this mentality because surely Shia, they were actually oppressed for hundreds of years within a Sunni majority population within the Islamic world. So yeah, I can see and I can connect the dots here.
Yeah. So the framework of the Western left, which, remember, it's just code word for like communists who know that communism fails, and now it's the current form of it is intersectional feminism, and they thought, well, let's put a woman in charge and maybe it'll succeed this time. That was the game plan. They didn't really know what she would do. Just make sure she has a vagina, everything will be cool. And
vagina or mangina.
Well, yeah, one or the other. They were hoping to get Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton. It's hard to
have both, actually.
It's hard to know what Hillary Clinton even believes in, because she just wanted to be the first female president, as far as I know. You know what I mean? So they had this. That was the how the alliance started. But what I honestly sort of think is that the countries that allowed themselves to become run by this Western leftists, like, Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, Angela Merkel, Great Britain to a certain degree, Obama was totally this. Like, he was absolutely on board with this style of leftism. And he was a massive, Islam apologist, and, all of that stuff. The people the countries who allowed themselves to be aligned in this way, they all faced gigantic economic crashes, because they started basically trying to run their countries as communist as they could, and then their economies tanked. And I think that what must be going on is that a number of the Islamic governments keep bailing out the politicians and offering them money as bribes to sort of, just be endlessly apologetic for Islam, and to the point where now the only thing that they really care about is making the Islamists happy. And that might have been part of the strategy of the Islamists the whole time. They were like, wait, these people have developed this weird pathological altruism, this weird complex where they believe that their nations have destroyed the earth. Well, let's convince them that we are the places that they have destroyed, and let's use that to our advantage, and then we will invade. And it happened very organically, and not, largely organically through a long selection of trial and error and natural selection. It ended up this way. But it's very historically noted. It's the book Unholy Alliance, which has 50 pages of references, of footnotes, like he'll lead you to 50 pages worth of other books to read, like because this guy does his homework. that book
and
was
that mentality becomes really dangerous. I mean, that perspective that you were talking about, that becomes really dangerous when it actually can start to affect a society like Sweden, which has a really.
Let's finish real quick because I'm like at the last sentence. So that book, Unholy Alliance, that I'm telling you about, that explains how how Islam and the current left came into being. That book was published in 2006. It was published 12 years ago, and it's almost like it reads as if it's a contemporary description of the crap that we're dealing with now. So,
yeah, well, you were actually onto something here, which I just sort of popped up in my head, because I mean, this ideology and the way of thinking that you were talking about, that actually becomes really dangerous when you take it into a Scandinavian perspective, a particularly Swedish perspective. You have to know two things about Swedish society. Our society was formerly a very Japanese in a more literal sense, because we actually had a warrior class that were in power, that actually influenced our culture really, really much. It's pretty much like the samurai. They were called Karolinerna. So anyway, they actually affected the Swedish culture and society a great deal. The problem is that the Swedish mindset hasn't really evolved from this really heavy militaristic point of view to actually have a little bit more like free-thinking society. We are still always encouraged to actually always obey the authorities, always trust the authorities. The authorities know what is best for you. Because we've been trained to this since childhood for hundreds of years. So I can see where this is actually going. So if you combine this way of thinking that you were talking about with the Swedish society, that's when you actually have this dangerous combination which we have started to see in the Swedish society. However, on Sunday, hopefully, we will actually see a shift towards more nationalistic principles. Because then I actually think that we will get rid of all this way of thinking, at least for the time. So I'm actually seeing a lot of funny points that you're making here when I apply them to Swedish society. When it comes to like white slavery, for instance, yeah, I'm going there. Sorry, anyone who is perhaps African American or whatever. By the way, you do realize, African American listeners, that Africans in Europe don't like you at all. But anyways,
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's actually true for the Caribbean as well.
Sorry?
Oh, the same mentality is true with black people from the Caribbean.
There's
black, and then there's there's American black, and then there's African to them.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a little bit more complicated. I have a friend who's part Jamaican, and it's because the Jamaican slaves didn't live and they had to like pay their own rent and work for free or something. Like they lived in a separate quarters, so they had to work even harder in Jamaica. So the Jamaican immigrants think that the Black Americans are lazy, and it's this stereotype.
Yeah.
So
and now hold that thought, because you're gonna love this. Because in Sweden, up until the 1940s, we actually had a system called stotaren and torpare, which literally means, okay, they were more or less like serfs, but stotare was more or less like,
indentured servants.
Yeah, but they could actually be kicked out and moved around at the whim of the estate owner. So
that's basically serfs. Yeah.
Yes. But the torpare actually had a little bit better, because they actually had a house. Stotare did not. They had to live in barns, more or less, specially constructed for them, like barracks, more or less. So I guess when it comes to when African Americans, from a Swedish perspective, and now from a Swedish historic Nordic perspective, I actually find that mentality that African Americans have in the United States, this victim mentality, to be a somewhat disgusting, and they're always like complaining about stuff that they didn't really suffer for at least 150 years, whilst my ancestors just suffered this just about 50 years ago, because it was still enforced in the 60s. So
Wait,
I mean,
you guys had serfs in the 60s?
Well, we had a serf class-ish, so yeah, we kind of did have serfs.
Yeah.
The last.
Oh, that's right. You guys are still technically a monarchy. I always forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. There is a particular, and I think that this mentality is mainly something that came about during the Obama years, and I talk about it during my video called I think it's called like Obama presidency equals affirmative action higher. And it's really true because Obama only won because he was a black guy, period. Like nobody knew who he was. Turns out his history was in like radical, weird, basically Marxist organizing, and nobody really knew that. They're just like, cool, he's black and he's not a Republican. Like that was why he got elected. And the attitude, the general pop cultural, like just the general feeling of America was that black people, it's black people's turn to get stuff, and and white people were okay with that because they're like, oh, I guess we have been treating black people pretty bad, and so white people played right into that, and it was fine for a while, but then it got to the point when there was this attitude among many African American people, and it's definitely not all. Like there's a lot of people who are, a lot of black people who I know personally. Like we had a guy on last week who's mixed but part black. He's really cool, and he would totally agree with this, I'm sure, which is this very entitled attitude of like, stop the show, I'm black, I make the rules. And that kind of like attitude, sort of like the same thing as the trans person, invading the gay space and wanting to control everybody. Well, black Americans sort of started doing that. And it's weird, like I was just noticing this even just today. I was with my friend, who's a girl. I ran into her on the street. She works by my house, and I was running to the store, and she's not even white. She's like mixed. She's part Northern Native American, like Inuit or whatever, which would be Alaska, area. And so I'm walking with her, and then she's gonna wait for the bus. And so I said that I would order my car, like a taxi type car, to get back to my house, and I would wait with her at the bus stop. So she's like, okay, cool. And so she pulls out a cigarette, and some black guy comes up, and he does it in a weird, like passive aggressive way. But he's like, hey, I'm gonna ask you to, to be a very polite person, and maybe, like not light up the cigarette, and blah 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 blah. And she's just like, I don't even remember. I was ordering my car like off my phone but she basically was just like, no. I'm gonna smoke. It's outside, and it was a windy day too. The wind is blowing. It's not like it's gonna be like, like getting him,
it wasn't in an elevator or something.
Yeah, no, not at all. It was like a wide open street, lots of wind. It was actually starting to kind of rain a little bit. So, and she's like, no. And he's like, well, I guess you're a really mean person. And we're just kind of like, oh, fuck off. Like we're just like acted like, we just sort of ignored him. And it's funny, like he's lucky that I was on my phone when he did that, because if I was fully aware, I would have been like, he's like, I'm going to be polite and ask you to be a polite person too. And I'd be like, no, you're not. No, you're being completely rude. If you were a polite person, you would just give us an odd look or something and hope that maybe she would pick up on the signal. But what you're doing is you're ordering strangers around on the street. That's what you're doing. And that's not a polite thing to do. And you are not entitled to tell her what to do on the street. That is not what a polite person does.
Would there be finger snapping involved in this statement?
No, there would be pointing.
Okay.
I would be pointing at his face, and I'd be like, look, dude, I don't know what type of like, and the subtext, like this is what I wouldn't say, but this is what I'd be meaning. I'd be like, look, I'm not sure what type of white people you're used to dealing with in Seattle, but I'm not one of them. And she's not even white, and she is not the one either.
In fact, she was more oppressed in reality than he was. If you come to the intersectional theory,
and the thing is that so many, like if you go to Seattle, Seattle is mostly very quite white place, but there's enough racial minorities around for it to be somewhat diverse. And the racial minorities get pampered and treated like aristocrats much of the time, to the point where they got spoiled and they think that they have a right to order people around a lot of the time, and it makes some of them insufferable. It's like, no, that's not how you treat adults on the street. You don't know us. You have no right to tell her to not smoke. How dare you? Who the fuck do you think you are? So, and maybe it's not because he's black. I don't really know. Maybe there would be a white person that would do that too. But I will say that because of the fact that he was black, many white people wouldn't smoke. You know, she was just like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna smoke anyway." You know, like.
Well, no, most white people aren't going to do that though. They're going to do that fake cough sound.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah. I'm lighting. There have been a couple times I've been known to light up too, and double fist them.
I mean, some of you guys know I lived in Nevada, so I'm used to there just being smoke everywhere.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's completely alien to that. I remember when during my very brief and insane round as a truck driver, I went to a lot of casinos and a lot of very unusual truck stop, or not truck stops, but like there's a whole like parallel society out there of people that just live on the road with never really like interact with civilization normally again, and those places tend to be very smoky.
I'll be right back. I need to do some bio, if you don't mind.
Some bio, okay.
Oh yeah, go for me too, if you would.
I did for a second while I was.
Okay.
Oh, the Gaytriarchy is breaking apart.
Oh no.
Pretty soon, Kat's going to be sitting here singing all by myself.
All by myself.
I will leave you.
Who was that? Who was that song?
Celine Dion.
Oh God.
Oh,
That's why I will leave you.
She only had one really good song. Like all of like she was technically a great singer. Like she has an amazing voice, whatever. But like her songs are fucking bad. She don't know how to pick songs. It's like Rihanna is not a good singer, but Rihanna has a number of fucking catchy ass songs. Like Rihanna
knows how to pick them.
Yeah, she knows how to pick them. Like We Found Love in a Hopeless Place, one of the best dance songs of the past 15 years. And it's not because of Rihanna's like amazing singing necessarily. It's just that you can tell by the way she sings it that she obviously really loved the song. And it was like as soon as she heard it and she was like, yeah, I want to, and that's what makes a great song. Like kind of like a lot of Madonna songs. Madonna's not like technically a great singer, but she put that passion behind her voice, and then and that's what made it a hit.
Well, with a lot of Celine Dion's earlier work, she had no idea what the hell she was singing anyhow.
that's probably what it is. But she did have one. She did have one good song, and it was the "It's All Coming Back to Me" song.
Oh yeah, that one is good.
Oh, UK Skin said that All By Myself was originally by Eric Carmen and hails back to 1964. I learned something new today.
You can't see our faces right now, but it's the mind blown GIF right now.
Speak for yourself.
It's like when you first realize that Red from Orange is the New Black is the same actress as Janeway from.
I know.
Or Patrick, or when you first see Patrick Stewart on Jeffrey. You remember that movie?
I didn't.
It was a 90s gay-themed movie, and Patrick Stewart is on there as this extremely flamboyant interior decorator, and it is great.
What was it? Some Flair with Care or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Interior Designers Against AIDS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was he did really good in that movie.
Oh, it was hilarious. Bacon hadn't heard of it either, so he's got a homework assignment that he's going to ignore.
It is actually a good movie. I remember the first time my mind ever got blown like that. It was actually quite young. It was because when I realized that LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow was Geordi.
Oh yeah.
That happened very young because I was watching Star Trek and then I started watching Reading Rainbow. Or I don't remember which one came first exactly, but at some point I realized they were the same person because LeVar Burton took us on a tour of the set of and at that point I couldn't process it. I was like, the streams are crossing.
It was unresponsive for 4 days.
What's really surreal, and you guys should totally, like, if you haven't looked at Reading Rainbow in a long time, go ahead and watch Reading Rainbow now, because it wasn't like this on Star Trek. Like, you know, he's a pretty good actor. He acts.
He is.
Roots. But on Star Trek, Geordi the character is just, you know, nerdy guy. That's what he is like. Fucking Reading Rainbow, he is a fucking queen. Like, he's all queenie and shit. Like, it's weird. Like, you go ahead and, like, because I stayed up all night this one night with this friend, not gonna say why, this girl, and she didn't have, this was like last decade, and she had a TV, but she like only had, you know, like airwave TV. She didn't even have cable. And so we started watching TV, and all we could watch was like Channel 9. And so PBS, yeah, and it's LeVar Burton doing Reading Rainbow, and we were like, oh my god, I didn't remember that he was such a queen, and we were just laughing for so long.
Are you kidding? Straight guys are the queeniest things out there. I mean,
is he straight or is he gay?
I think he's straight. I'm not sure.
It's hard to say.
I don't know. He does hang out with or at least he used to hang out with Whoopi Goldberg. Wasn't she an enormous fag hag?
Oh, I'm sure she had to have been.
Yeah.
Well, she was also in that movie Boys on the Side.
Because that's how she became Guinan, when she was hanging out with LeVar Burton, and he told her that he was going to be on Star Trek, and she was like, I am a huge Star Trek nerd way back from the 60s. Like, I need to be in this because there are no black women in science fiction, or before Uhura.
She wanted to be the next Uhura.
Yeah, well, she the way she told it, but yeah, that is true. But the way she tells it, she said that, you know, she wanted to be part of it because like it was such an inspiration for her growing up.
Yeah, no, that's that was so great about like the Next Generation. The you know, I'm not saying not to diss Deep Space Nine. I know you like Deep Space Nine better, but
I love them both. It's like choosing a favorite pet. Like I couldn't.
But when the Next Generation came out, it was this like legitimate boundary crossing thing. They had never had a show that was like that, and the networks didn't want to air it, so they had to syndicate it and then like sell it to different networks and crap. Like, it was like this huge deal because they thought it wasn't marketable, and then it became this like iconic, like maybe the most iconic television series in history. Next Generation, at least of our lifetimes.
Oh, definitely.
And so, hold on, I gotta go wash my face. My eyes are burning. Hold on.
So I know if your ears burn when someone's talking about you. So if your eyes burn, what are people drawing a picture of you?
He's got Ken Folks banging. I mean,
I don't even want to know what happened if you had a burning butthole, for instance. At that point,
someone's masturbating to it.
What? Oh God! Can you imagine that?
It means you just sat in the invisible man's lap.
Oh, by the way, actually we have actually a funny game here in Sweden when it comes to gay men amongst ourselves. Can
we try to circle?
Yeah. So, what's the most lesbian sounding names you can come up with?
Bertha.
What is a real dyke?
Oh,
Wait, Bertha.
Is that real? No, that's like a hillbilly name. Is that a lesbian name?
we can have bull dykes too. Thank you much.
I don't know, like River or something.
And I object to a hillbilly. I'm an Appalachian American. Thank you.
So I'm going to say River.
Cordelia.
There are no Cordelias outside of Buffy.
I actually know a lesbian. I actually know well, my mom's friend dated a lesbian named Cordelia, so that's the only reason why I think of that.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Sadly, I have a lesbian aunt named Cordelia. Cousins.
I stand corrected. Clearly.
Dame Teffer says in chat, none of them. They're queer.
So, is Victor? Are you back?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you ever watch Game of Thrones?
No, even though my fiance actually looks like that red-haired dude.
That's what I was going to talk about. I was going to bring up him because there's so I think that the in Game of Thrones the wildlings are sort of supposed to represent Nordic people.
Ish.
Okay, ish, yes. So there's this funny scene because I've never like talked about this scene, but it's one of just like the funniest kind of gay-ish moments in the whole show. It happened in the last season. All the character, not all the characters, but there's like 4 guys. There's Jon Snow, the red-haired guy, the guy with the eye patch, who's the head of the some sort of, they're outlaws. He's the head of the army, and then Gendry, who is one of the bastard sons of the old king. They all go up north trying to bring back a living dead person, because they have to try to capture one to prove that they exist, and so they're walking, all 4 of them, and Gendry, the bastard son, he's probably only like 20. He's pretty young looking. And all the other ones are like full-grown adult fighters that have been fighting for a while and everything. And the red guy in particular is very big and scary looking. And they're like, "Oh, it's cold up here. How do you live here?" And he's like, and the red-haired guy's like, "The secret is to keep moving. Walking's good. Walking's good. Fighting's better. Fucking is best." And then and then one of them is like, there's not a woman here in about 200 miles. And then he looks over to Gendry, the 20-year-old, and he's like, "Then we'll just have to make do with what we've got." and it's like supposed to be a joke in the show, but then I thought about it and I'm like, I wonder how much of a joke that actually was. Like, in the context of that, like, I wonder if they started fucking him.
Well, they would in prison. It seems like a reasonable expectation, especially if you just need to stay warm in a frozen wasteland.
Hold on, did they keep their socks on? Okay, not gay.
Well, I mean, Katz, you're actually seen my fiance in the picture, yes. So you know actually how similar he looks like Christopher Hivju. But I mean, it's
he looks like he's straight off the set of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So I mean, it's when it comes to Game of Thrones, I mean, all Swedes and Norwegians are kind of like, "Oh God, not another reference to Game of Thrones." We're kind of
God, that's like us Arkansans in Deliverance.
Yeah, it's like, I'm from Seattle. People are like, "Oh," like I actually talked to Bering one time, and he was like, I said, because I think he asked me like what part of the U.S. I live in, and I'm like, "Well, I currently live in Seattle, but I was living in San Francisco," and he's like, "I don't really know the difference. I know that one of them's in California where it's supposed to be hot, the other one rains all the time, and there's Kurt Cobain is from there." And I'm like, "Oh God, are you a fan of grunge?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Oh fucking hell,"
Did you walk into the interview at that point?
But actually, it's kind of funny when I see Game of Thrones, and well, I haven't really watched it, but when I see like Game of Thrones and the characters and the ice people, we actually have those in our mythology. So it was kind of like, oh, that the ice people, we would just call them we would call them Draugr or Likkung, which means Lich King, basically.
Oh, they're in the fucking God of War.
Yeah, we actually have.
Yeah, they're also in Secret World.
Yeah, and in World of Warcraft. Thank you very much.
And in Skyrim.
Yeah.
My God, we've gone full nerd.
How are they different than the Jotun?
Well, Jotun is actually just giants, ice giants, I would probably say. And we actually have a part of Norway which is called Jotunheim, which actually means the home of the giants. So I mean, it's kind of weird when I see like all these fantasy shows from the United States and or the English world in general. It's kind of like, oh God, not again. Can we see something different? So it's kind of like that.
So you feel like since you already had all of these stories growing up, like it's not exotic to you.
Precisely, and also well, Katz, you have seen pictures of my surroundings, where I live and everything.
Just so everyone knows, I've seen this man's house and I hate him. I absolutely, I loathe him because he lives in, like, you know, like when you look at an IKEA catalog and you see the front, you see this charming little like rustic kind of like Swedish country farmhouse, just simple, plain, elegant. There's trees and flowers everywhere. It looks perfect. That's his house. That's his fucking house, and I hate him because I want it.
Yeah. So, anyways, and I mean, the landscape itself here is actually. Has anyone of you played Diablo games?
No, I haven't played them.
Not really.
I don't.
Sorry.
I know what they are, but I have not played.
Okay.
Feral.
My surroundings are actually pretty much like the Diablo, the first acts. So it actually looks very much like Tristram, for instance.
That's a
cool.
Blizzard game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I play Overwatch, which is a Blizzard game.
Yeah. So basically, it actually looks like identical to the surroundings of Tristram. So I mean, it's kind of funny when I play the game and I can actually see the surroundings and everything because it's identical to where I live. So that's kind of funny.
Wild.
That's surreal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to like the Nordic mythology and everything, I mean, we actually have much more terrifying creatures than the Lich King or Lich King. We have we actually have like undead children walking down chimneys strangling people.
Oh god!
Wow.
Yeah.
Sweden.
That is so metal.
And we actually have a war demon pig that is actually guarding the dead in churchyards.
Feral, I think you're right. It is metal. It's like they should just make like a Nordic heavy metal animated
Y'all just
film.
keep talking because I'm continuing to pack my bags.
Mm-hmm. I don't. Oh, Feral, I wish. Do you have the picture that I made of your mother?
Yes.
Oh, you've got to screen share that. So
I gotta find it. It's somewhere buried in my Google Drive.
Oh my!
And it's great. There's actually a story with it. I'm going to try to find it. So let me search for this. I've kind of jumped across machines a few times.
Oh, by the way, Feral, we actually have lynxes living here. I actually have one on my land that's living here, by the way.
Have what?
A lynx. Bobcat. There are actually quite a lot of them here in my region. And I actually have one. I can actually hear her scream at nights.
I'm packing faster.
Yeah,
no, you're not.
I love lynxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, lynxes are the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, except for when you drive a small car and you nearly hit them.
Yeah, or they kill your dogs.
Well,
or your chickens.
At that point, it becomes complicated.
Yeah,
I love their big paws.
I know.
If
they're eating your chickens, they're worth a shotgun blast.
Oh.
Yeah, and we have mooses all over the place as well. We have, I mean, I get tons of wildlife here, and so I mean, it's kind of like when it comes to like all the wild game that I can find here, it's kind of like, yeah, sure, it's normal. It's kind of funny to see when city people actually come out here and they actually realize how far off I actually live. So that's kind of fun. So, but
how near is the nearest store?
What's that? I don't know in miles. In American.
How long
terms.
does it take? How long does it take to get there?
It takes about 10 minutes, I guess.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, but then you have to drive really, really fast. My closest neighbor is 2 miles away.
Okay,
so,
that's pretty far.
Yeah. So actually, very much out in the wilderness.
My closest neighbor is about 15 feet away.
Unlucky you. Anyway, so I mean, it's kind of weird when I actually speak to Americans because you've obviously heard of IKEA, and yes, we actually go there. But please ask a Swede for a recipe on meatballs, for God's sake. Don't eat the IKEA store thing. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for not eating food from a furniture store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know there's some days that I just feel so hungry I could eat a horse, and they can make that happen.
Well, it will be a sawhorse.
Yeah, but you have to cook and clean
actually
horse.
do eat horse.
Oh, one time it was considered to be I'm trying to remember exactly how it was put, but at one time wasn't horse meat considered to be kind of for the upper classes or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's actually still the same here. We actually use it like in fine dining, etc. And we
Really?
and we eat pickled herring a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense because like venison, deer meat is really really good. Like it's very tasty actually. Like it's like cow meat is a little bit more soft, but it does not have the rich flavor.
Well, I actually prefer.
We just lost the feed.
Yeah. Well, but anyways,
guys, the chat's saying we lost the feed.
Yo, Bacon, quit streaming your porn.
Wait, what?
I am not streaming that much porn.
Hold on one second. Let's see it.
So
no, it's saying no. Just reload it. Hold on.
In the meantime, I'm trying to find that.
No. Okay, yeah, just reload. We're there. All right, sorry guys.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
So, well, I mean, and by the way, if you ever come across this lingonberry jam, we don't eat it to desserts. We eat it to meat.
Oh, okay.
We never eat it. We never eat it for sweet dishes. We only eat it for like savory dishes only.
That makes so much more sense because I tried lingonberry jam. And I was like, I don't get why this is good, but it wasn't bad. It was just sort of like
tart.
Yeah, a little. It was like cherries, like those dark cherries. It's that kind of faintly sweet, sour flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but it's like not what you would necessarily want to put on toast.
Well, the acidity wouldn't make sense then.
But that makes that makes so much more sense. I'm definitely gonna try that with like chicken or fish or something.
I can actually recommend use it with beef.
Beef?
Or pork.
I don't eat beef or pork generally.
It's a sin.
It's this kind of intellectual cop out I have.
I know you're kind of a vegan, but you exclude fish and chickens.
I wouldn't say I'm a vegan.
He's an intersectional vegan.
No, it's very simple actually. Like to explain, I just tell people I don't like to eat mammals.
Oh well, good for you, or not good. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know they're tasty. It just I feel weird about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Sweden we actually eat. I mean, come on, we eat fermented herring, which is called.
I am with you actually on. Well, I don't know about fermented, but I love wine pickled herring. That was one thing I picked up from a Norwegian family that I really adored for a while.
Wine pickled herring. Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Herring is. It's funny. Herring is very Jewish in America. Like that's where you see it much more. But the only place I find.
Our general term for this is actually sill.
Sill.
Like, yeah, and that's pickled herring in all its forms and faces and everything. But then we have this fermented herring, which is a delicacy from the north. And yeah, you can actually watch tons of reaction videos on YouTube.
My god! Oh, that's funny. What does it taste like?
Okay, this is kind of, well, since we're all gay here, it tastes like semen-ish.
Oh god, it tastes like cum.
Oh great! Now we're not going to be able to keep it in stock. Way to go, bud.
Great.
Oh my god! Like that's
think of semen plus fish stock plus a little more salt.
I don't know how I feel about this exactly.
I've
had it before in kimchi and stuff like that, so I totally understand.
UK Skin is saying the smell is a bigger issue. That would be, I would wonder what it smells like.
Considered a terror weapon.
God!
Illegal to bring on planes.
Okay, so you're saying it's like the fish equivalent to like Limburger cheese or some of those other toxic fungus things.
Well, I can tell you one thing: Limburger cheese is a fresh breeze compared to surströmming.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Why isn't this a violation of the Geneva Convention? It sounds ghastly.
Because Sweden is a good country.
Yeah, and I mean it's actually so gassy, and it's actually emulating gases so much that actually the cans that they're bringing it in actually start to bulge because of the gas side.
You know what?
That is awesome.
You know what? This is how Sweden repels the more radical refugee problems. Like, you strategically put fermented herring in Islamic neighborhoods.
Do you like it personally?
I neither like it or dislike it. I think it's okay, but it's not really something that I'm looking forward to eat.
Would you say it's a quintessential Swedish kind of like meal?
No, that's actually quite an extreme thing because it's mostly eaten in the north, but we have different kinds of really weird stuff. But then again, Norwegians have their fermented salmon, which is called rakfisk, and then the Icelandic people has their fermented poisonous sharks.
Would you say that the Icelanders are like, who are the crazy people in the Nordic family?
Depends on in what subject. I mean, if we're talking like, okay, Icelandic people are pretty much the kid with severe ADHD, which is quite fabulous and kind of artsy. Think Björk.
Okay. Oh God, yeah. They really are like that.
Yeah, and then we have this this manic depressive kind of self-harming girl. We all known her in high school, for instance.
That was my sister.
Yeah, that would be Swedes, and here comes my fiance. But then we have the Norwegians. They're kind of like the happy yokel, more or less. And the Danes, well, they're just the Danes.
And don't you hate the Finnish?
No.
But they're not. But they are not Scandinavian, though, and some people do get irritated about being lumped together.
Wait, hold on. Let me look at the map. I gotta look at the map now.
Well, no, geographically they're very similar, but they're culturally, ethnically, and linguistically apart.
If you look in our Gaytriarchy chat on Twitter, guess what I found?
What?
Oh,
you found the picture?
I found it.
Oh, you got to put it on.
I put it on there too, kid.
I don't see why it's like supposed to not be part of it. So
hold on, let me pull up. Well, no,
they're just a different. Like, they're not. They have a common geography to an extent, but they're not from the same genetic. There's the Nepenthes. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
This was the icon I made for Feral Cat's mother, since he called her the mother of barbarians.
Yep.
she looks like a Valkyria, or Valkyrie.
Oh yeah, totally. I take it you know her. Now, there's actually a story with Chainsaw. It has to do with a party that my brother and I had when we were about 11 and 13. Had a lot of our friends over, and she decides that morning that she wants to put in a bay window. She doesn't plan these things out. She just freaking does it. So everybody's crashed out in the living room floor. Chainsaw comes through the wall, up in a neat line, across in a neat line, down a neat line. It falls out, and she's just looking at it. Everybody's just staring at her, paralyzed. And she's like, "We'll do breakfast here in a minute."
Yeah. Well, actually, I can tell you one thing when it comes to like culture. I mean, my fiance, he's from the Czech Republic, and it's really interesting how they are. Think of the silent, really eccentric, kind of sad dude with a fierce temper. That's really much how Czech people are. And then we have the Polish, which they only have the guilt. They always have the, this incorporated guilt within themselves.
Oh,
yeah.
Sounds very Jewish.
That's where we live.
So what are those little islands? The
Falkland Islands.
Falkland Islands. Okay, it's very small. So there's Finland. Let's see, Finland is right next to Sweden.
That's Åland.
Oh.
Yeah, Åland is a small islands between Sweden and Finland, and then we have to the south we have Gotland, which is actually a really fabulous place for you to visit.
No, I was looking at the islands between Iceland and Norway.
Sorry.
There's like a little island nation between Iceland and Norway that starts with an F.
Faro?
Yeah, that's Färöarna.
Okay.
Nepenthes, can
Faroe Islands.
The Faroe Islands, yeah. Can you I was trying to explain to Prince of Queens, and I think I failed at explaining how Finland is not really, they're not Scandinavian, like they are in the area, but they're ethnically and like they're apart. They're not, you guys aren't the same as far as like ancestry.
No, not at all. I mean, linguistically, Finns have a lot more in common with Hungarians and the Sami people in the up north of Sweden. And well, English has a lot more in common with Swedish than it ever has with Finnish, for instance.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. But culturally, Finns are really heavily influenced by us because, come on, they were a part of our country for 800 years. So, yeah, I mean, the culture is pretty much the same. But when it comes to linguistics, not so much.
Huh,
they're kind of strange people, too.
Because, okay, so...
I can say that because my husband is Finnish.
Jeff Holiday. Do you know the YouTuber Jeff Holiday?
Nope.
Okay, so he lives actually very close to me geographically in the United States, so we're from the same area. He lives in Oregon, and I live in Washington. It's the Northwest United States, and his family
Keep
is.
talking. I have to make some coffee for my fiance. He just woke up,
Okay.
but I can still hear you.
Okay, so his family is Finnish, I think. I believe that they are Finnish. And he has, I think he was saying that his grandfather is not at all racist towards Black Americans. He doesn't care really. But if he were to find out that, you know, his son or grandson was dating a Swedish girl, he would make an issue out of that because the Finnish people don't like the Swedes because of some war or something, but I don't remember what it was. I just remember Jeff talking about that one time.
Well, it's kind of like this because they were kind of oppressed by us, so I can kind of understand why. Because I mean, Swedes actually we actually kind of forced our language and culture on them, and we actually had a king called Erik den Helige, which literally translates to Eric the Holy. And he actually made crusades into Finland, and well, it didn't kind of end well. So ever since then, they kind of were a slave part for us, more or less. So that's why Finns kind of
has to do with bad blood.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah,
but generally, no. I mean, it's kind of like this. We like each other still, but it's kind of like awkward. It's just like awkward when it comes to politics and all and history. Then it becomes really awkward for Finns and Swedes actually talking with each other.
Okay. Yeah, you would definitely kind of have to be of the same mind about history, or like not, or either that or not talk about it and agree to that, because there are some subjects that are just not wise for people to get into if they wish to maintain certain kinds of relationships.
Yeah. So I mean, when it comes to like the and tensions between the Scandinavian countries, including Finland and Estonia, for instance, there really isn't really that much. It's actually more the prevalence the further south in Europe you go, actually, especially in the eastern parts of Europe, like in the Balkans and everything. Then ethnic tensions actually becomes real. So it really, in the northern of Europe, no one really cares. Not really.
Okay.
So yeah. So
where is the okay? If you were going to go on a gay, like not you probably, I don't mean you, but if most Swedish guys were going to go on a trip to more of the slightly main, like what people mostly consider Western Europe, in the United States at least, you know, so like Germany, UK, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, where would be the hot gay destination right now?
Germany. Most definitely Germany.
Would they go to Berlin?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. But not for like a vacation, because I heard that there a lot of guys vacation in Greece right now.
They used to, but do they still?
No. Currently, there's definitely a lot of the like circuit parties.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like this. I think it's like Davos or something.
I can actually ask my fiance what he thinks about it. I will have to speak Swedish just
That's fine.
for a moment.
Yeah, we'll love that. We'll love that.
Ja, okej. Älskling, alltså om vi nu skulle åka någonstans typ så här på gaykryssning eller någonting liknande, var skulle vi åka då?
Caribbean.
The Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
So-
the Caribbean?
As the
Yeah,
gay
well, I mean,
destination.
Caribbean cruises, for instance.
Royal Caribbean Cruise.
Yeah, Royal Caribbean Cruise.
Oh,
okay.
that makes sense.
So they do that in Europe.
Yeah,
I guess
we
those.
actually go to the Caribbean a lot.
I guess those ships are just a bit cruisy.
But
It had to be done, people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sorry.
If you don't mind, my
Actually,
fiance
sorry.
can come here and speak for himself. If
Oh.
well, you can actually hear his voice, I assume.
He
But I mean,
he sounds like a Jotun.
yeah, he is pretty much a Jotun. I mean, he looks.
I'm awake.
He's newly awake.
It's a nice voice.
Yeah,
I
I
like
know.
it.
well, Arcats. I mean, you've seen him. You know how he
Yes,
looks like.
I do. But so maybe I'm being colored by perceptions.
Yeah.
I don't know. We should take a poll on Twitter right now.
Sorry.
We said we could do a Twitter poll, like say, like, does he have a hot voice? Like, contestants respond.
Are you for real?
He was asking if you are for real.
Well, I did say it. I don't know if I'm actually going to make a poll, but we'll see if anyone responds to what I said.
it would
Well,
probably just be me.
Yeah,
It would probably just
Well,
be about me, one of us.
yeah.
Well, we can always put him on a strip pole.
Mhm. A verbal strip poll. Like, there won't be any actual imagery, just sounds. that would be
I know.
that would be blind compliance.
But he's actually ginger like you, Prince. So yeah, you can imagine.
Or his avatar, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not actually ginger.
Ah,
He does
sorry,
have
you're-
a
Yeah,
soul.
My avatar came from the movie
I know where it came from.
Okay, yeah, I didn't choose it because
I love those movies. I love Chucky.
yeah, I didn't choose it because I looked like it. I chose it because I identified kind of like that kid from the.
Yeah.
I don't particularly know why
You
exactly. I just
identify as a Chucky.
I no, not as a Chuck. Have you seen Seed of Chucky where they have the kid?
Oh no, I haven't seen Seed of Chucky.
Okay, how have you not watched it by now? Been streaming with me for so long. It's been almost a year.
It has actually.
So
Prince, this one. You do you remember this one?
Hold on.
His Glenn or Glenda?
Yeah. It's because So the Chucky movie has always had a little bit of humor in them. Like even the first one, which was actually scary. The thing was he was the soul of a serial killer put into this doll, and the serial killer had bad mouth on him. So occasionally he'd start swearing at people, and it was like this funny kind of thing, even though it was actually scary at the same time. But as it got on to like the third one, it was like more and more comedy. And then by the time they made Bride of Chucky, they were fully admitting that they were being kind of silly. But Seed of Chucky is beyond silly. Like it is just a comedy movie. Like it's not even trying to be scary at all. And the thing about Seed of Chucky is that it starts with the little kid, and he's being held captive in some sort of like circus, and he's supposed to be the ventriloquist dummy because he can talk. And he's like, I don't know where, and he has a British accent for some fucking reason. and he's like, I don't know where I came from. All I know is that I was born in Japan, and he has on his wrist and it says "Made in Japan." And so somehow he escapes from the circus, and he goes to find his real mom and dad, and he goes to Hollywood and somehow sort of like finds them, and they were like, no, you can't be our kid. We've never had, and then the Jennifer Tilly doll is like turns and he's like, Chucky, I never told you, you know, and so he's like, no, and so they're like, well, what do we call you? And he's like, well, they called me, they had some like stupid, like mean name for him and so they're like, well, are you a boy or a girl? And they're like, he's like, well, that's the problem. I don't know. And he pulls down his pants and he doesn't have anything. and so it's they have Chucky's like, well, he's a boy, and she's like, no, it's a girl, and so Chucky wants to call him Glenn, and Bride of Chucky wants to call him Glenda, and the thing is that while he's a boy, he is nice and innocent, but when he turns into a girl, he goes crazy and kills people, and it like happens occasionally. And so yeah, it's actually a worthwhile movie.
I'll have to watch this.
It's absurd. It's not scary. Like, don't expect to be scared. Watch it just because it's a very weird movie, and John Waters is in it for some reason.
Oh God!
Yeah,
it's photographing Chucky masturbating, which is kind of odd too. Anyway.
The most disturbing film I ever saw was one of the early Peter Jackson films.
Brain Dead.
Dead Alive.
Is that the one with all the puppets?
Puppet Master.
No.
Meet
That's
the Feebles. That's Meet the
Feebles.
Meet the Feebles. Yeah, that thing disturbed me like much more than any other film I've ever seen. A weird friend of mine showed it to me.
Oh well.
I was like, oh my God, the puppet has AIDS. I just don't know how I feel about this. This is weird. It was funny, but it was disturbing.
But then again, I'm actually, unironically, I'm actually one of those people that listens to Sharon Needles' "Dead Girls Never Say No" and actually laugh about it. And then again, yeah, that's my sense of humor. Really obscene and weird.
No, most gay guys were like that was part of the fun of being a gay man. You got to have the most offensive sense of humor because there was never going to be kids around.
Oh, I actually have a story about that. When I lived in Stockholm, I actually went to a club called Mums Mums, which kind of is like yummy yummy in English.
Lovely.
And they actually had this hijab fashion week. So, and then my friend, he was a really really feminine, stereotypically gay guy in high heels. He was actually a really weird combination. He was half Finnish, half Nigerian, and he looked like Grace Jones. So anyways, he went up to the catwalk. And he stood with his back towards the audience. He had this really, really platina blonde wig. And then he had a t-shirt. So when he just moved around, and he had a ketchup bottle in his hands, by the way. So then he moved around and it said, "It's Britney, bitch." And he walks down the aisle, like shaking the ketchup bottle and just throwing the ketchup at the audience and like moaning like lesbian sex, etc.
God.
Yeah.
I think we call that performance art.
Yeah, and and also another friend of mine, he was actually famous for the N-word cake, and he is also black. So he actually made a cake.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, Makode is his name. So, anyways, he basically had this theme party, which was back in 2006, because no, not 2006, 2008. It was some sort of jubilee because of the tsunami tragedy in Asia in 2004, I think. And it was kind of like tsunami party fashion week. So he actually hired Thai trans women, and they were always like screaming, "Hello everybody, free massages for everybody," and he just killing birds, had sand and everything in all of this. And the club was then for the night called Your Mama's Bangkok.
Wow.
Yeah, Sweden is very weird in Sweden.
The Swedish gay scene is savage.
I just came up with some merch. If I were to finally sell, and I've come up with some before, but I think that this might be something that people would actually buy because it would be so suiting to what my channel is all about. Kind of, and it would say, I say, F, and then it would have a bunch of like maybe F at pound $, you know, so it would be as if you were trying to say faggot, except for it would be censored. And it would just say, so I say, meh, 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 you know, and then it would say Prince of Queens on the back in small writing somewhere. And it would be, the idea is like, I say this word that I don't actually say on the t-shirt.
I like that.
Yeah. Because a lot of my heterosexual audience members who have considered, you know, maybe potentially being into something, a lot of them are the type of guys who use the word faggot as you know, just like they it's not like they usually probably wouldn't call a gay guy a faggot as an insult, because like, why? That's stupid, you know. Like that's for like professional trolls on Twitter who create sock puppet accounts to annoy me. Like, those are the only people who ever call me that. But you know, I have friends that they'll call other straight guys faggots as insults. And it's just, and like sometimes gay guys sort of call each other straight guy things as insults too, like, ew, you're fucking acting like a straight guy, fuck off, you know, like that kind of a thing. Like we will say that as an insult, and so that's what it is to them. And so they've asked me, is it okay if I say faggot? And I'll be like, well, if you know, like, for the most part we'd kind of prefer it if you didn't, but at the same time, like, I can't get mad at you if you are like, if you don't actually hate gay men, and you like I'm not going to be the one to get mad at you. But then also so I think that those guys might actually buy it, and gay men certainly might actually buy it, and that might be good. I'm don't let me forget this. Anyhow, sorry to derail the conversation.
Well, I mean, when it comes to like gay culture in general, I mean, my crew, so to say, when I lived in Stockholm, we would actually call ourselves lesbiska långvården i Grums, which is kind of like the lesbian hospice in a city called Grums. So that was kind of our crew. So we were kind of like messed up and
a lesbian hospice.
Yeah, the lesbian hospice.
So I guess that would be the.
That's awesome.
You know what that would be? That would be the gender studies department at UC Berkeley.
Oh, you have no idea how much we actually made fun of them in the late 2000s, starting to the 2010s. You have no idea how much we actually parodied them.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
I would love to know, though.
Yeah. So I mean, actually, one of the many jokes that we had was actually that she was a girl, and we call her Chloe. She was messed up. She was the one who was always screaming like, let's shove a fish hook in our pussy and everything.
Oh my God.
So and then she actually said, okay, let's have a scat sex competition. Who can eat the most?
Oh my God.
It's not Thursday.
Oh, that's, yeah. And I mean, and we actually always what's it called? You know, body fluids. We actually had a club called Victoria's Secret, which means literally
Victoria's Secret.
I think we know what that means. I have this feeling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then we actually had a picture of our crown princess, which her name was Victoria, so it was kind of funny. Anyway,
the funniest one I ever saw was actually in a very sad movie, Irreversible. It was in France. It's a very beautiful, sad movie, but like the name of the club or bathhouse, whatever it is, they just call it the Rectum.
I have a joke. Oh, Victoria's Secret joke. So, what is Victoria's Secret?
Oh, that was a really the most offensive
No,
gay.
Wait. Don't answer. Jesus fucking Christ. What is Victoria's Secret? Oh, bitch, please. It ain't no secret.
No, the best name of a gay-owned place that I've been to is right around Denton, Texas. I don't know if it's still open, but it's called Mabel's Beauty Shop and Chainsaw Repair.
Oh, by the way, actually, you can if you want to, you can actually hear one of the most famous songs that we actually played. And that was Working Girl by, no, not Working Girl, Barbie by Alexander Bard. He was a part of the Army of Lovers and then Bodies Without Organs. So look for Alexander Bard and Barbie. And it's like this really, really cheesy 80s, 90s song. And it says, and he sings about being Barbie and how she is a working girl and everything.
Oh my God.
My dad's girlfriend works with some working girls.
Yeah.
At a spa.
So anyways, I mean, the gay scene in Sweden used to be really, really offensive and still is. You just have to go to the kinky clubs nowadays instead.
They're just harder to find out here, I think.
Yeah. I think that we're gonna take back our own culture because it was hijacked. It's not like we aren't still around. We just guys are scared, but it's kind of like, wait,
we got complacent.
Yeah, it's like we don't really have to be scared anymore. There's more of us, and like, what are they actually going to do to us? I mean, like, it's
sit on us.
Yeah,
that's fattest.
But it's getting to the point where people are starting to admit that women can be sexist, that black people can be racist. Like, it's getting to that point, and it's like and like, even if you still run into people who will say, no, they can't, women can't be sexist, but what you got to do is you can be like, oh, like, it's you can easily mock those people for being uncool. What you can say is, oh yeah, are you intersectional? You're gonna get all intersectional, you're gonna woke us up. Is this like 2015 BuzzFeed up in here? You're gonna drop some knowledge bombs
we already have a derogatory term for those girls who actually invade gay bars and trying to be intersectional. We call them smeek-tjej, which literally means caressing girl. And they would just say, oh, you fucking smeek-tjej.
Yeah. I just call them rapey. I don't really have
but then we actually just say like smek mig lesbisk, which means caress me into a lesbian.
Yeah, I say it again here on the Gaytriarchy. Sweden is apparently metal as fuck.
Oh yeah.
If we ever establish the homo state, we'll go ahead and make them our capital. I think it works.
But like, I think the fear that guys have is that 2015 was a crazy year. 2015 was the year that Alison Tiemann got kicked out of the Calgary Expo, to which she took it to court and ended up losing her case, and now they're trying to come after her business. And hopefully some people will rally behind that, and there will be the trial will go back open because the judge was completely corrupt. But that was the landscape of 2015, where if you said the wrong thing at the wrong time, you could lose your job and be put on public humiliation, and you couldn't do anything about it. People would say, serves you right, you should have never said the word tranny. You know what I mean? That's what 2015 was like. Well, it's not like that anymore, and even they know it. And so if they try to treat you like it's 2015, all you have to do is say, the fuck you think this is? 2015, you blue-haired dumb motherfucker. Go dye your hair blue. I don't see the blue in it. Go, get out of here. And they will have to walk away in shame, because it's true. Everyone knows that it ain't 2015 no more.
Tumblr called. They want their haircut back.
They have so few.
Actually, this front hole business that they were trying to.
Oh yes,
yeah.
The front hole.
I mean, they actually tried to do this with transgender guys. That they were supposedly trying to actually say that biological dick is köttkuk, which means meat dick, and then we have a dick. So what gay guys did was actually that they were telling those transgenders, oh, well, have you gone to the freezer and just got yourself a tenderloin or what and put it on your pussy? So that was kind of like how we actually did. Yeah.
This should seriously be like, you know, like those animated podcasts like that. This, you imagine like the heavy metal animation to this.
Well, the thing is, it really sucks because like I spent so many years of my life, and I still to this day care about transgender people who are cool and nice, and like I don't want them to have complexes about their genitals. I want life to be as comfortable as everything can be, and that's what they want, and they understand, you know, my intentions too. And that's why I was always kind of saying, like, look, you guys got to leave the gays alone, because you do not want the gays mad at you. Because like if you want somebody to make you feel like shit about yourself, it will be a gay man.
We can be some pretty vicious cunts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean you don't want them to go to the freezing food, to the freeze food sections and get them.
Wow.
No, it's sad to me. It's sad to me because it's like, you know, like I'm prepared to give like you know, you look at minority groups that have had a hard time, and me being somebody who granted I've had a pretty hard time too in a lot of ways, but let's say I've had less of a hard time. I look at them and I say, okay, I'm prepared to help you make things better for you and for people like you. And they said, okay. And then they took advantage of that, and I tried to say, hey, remember how I started being kind to you before the other gay guys were? Well, don't take advantage of all the gay guys, because a lot of them aren't as nice as I am. And they said, no, now all the other gay guys are kissing my ass. Screw you, Prince. I don't take orders from you no more. And I was like, you're gonna regret that. You know, like, and I think that's sort of what's starting to happen. And because, you know, I woke up about 3 years ago in not in San Francisco, in Seattle, in the West Coast, and I started telling people, I'm like, you guys are cruising for a bruising, like not just with straight people, but you know, like with other gay guys. Like if I'm getting tired of your shit, I've been around you guys longest because I was the gay male who knew the most trans people and who knew the most racial minorities. And if I got sick of your shit, imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years when every white gay guy is sick of your shit. Like, imagine how crappy everything is going to be for you. And so,
well, I mean, I'm trying to do the same, but also what I'm trying to actually tell them is precisely what you said. That yeah, I'm nice to you. Most gay guys are. You just have to listen to them occasionally.
yeah,
Don't get caught in the fishnet, so to say.
Yeah, don't get greedy. Don't think that because we're being accommodating, then that means that. I mean, I just like to say this, like, remember, just because a gay guy is willing to be your ally does not mean he's willing to be your bitch. And don't start treating him like he's your bitch just because he's temporarily acting like your ally.
Well, yeah. So, anyways, but when it comes to like transgenders, I mean, I actually believe that they are the ones that actually are the responsibility of why we're actually seeing a slight increase in hate crimes towards trans people, and that's because, well, I hate to sound like that, but it's basically because they are trying to impose stuff that no one really wants. Not even not even the true transsexuals either. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. But then again.
De tvingar på det här med Z-pen.
Just a moment. Jo, men det har vi redan pratat om också. Sorry. But I mean, I'm not sure if I can hear you correctly.
No,
Can
we hear you?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, but I mean, we have actually seen a slight increase in hate crimes towards LGBT individuals in Sweden, And that's mainly coming actually not from Nazis, fun enough. Actually, they're actually trying to embrace us, which is very odd. But we're actually seeing that from different immigrational groups in society, and that's because we have become too loud. Well, we're not ourselves become too loud, but I mean those transgenders have become too loud.
Huh. Wait, you just mentioned Nazis.
Yeah.
There is a legitimate Nazi presence.
Yes.
See, you haven't talked about that, and that's something that we don't, because here's the thing: in America, people say, "Oh, there's Nazis," but there's pretty much not. Like it's like they're just kind of making stuff up. But I know that in Europe, like people were like, "Oh yeah, well, what about the golden?"
We have true Nazis.
People like I made in my video where I critiqued ContraPoints for the first time. I was like, you've invented this like straw man of the alt-right that I don't know if anyone can really point to. Like, who would it be? Richard Spencer? Like, what? Like, does anybody ever actually meet these people? Was the point I was trying to make. And a number of people in my comments, they were like, "I'll tell you exactly who it is. It's the golden one." And I'm like, but is he even a thing? But I don't know. I'm not in. He's from Sweden, right?
I love the golden one.
The golden one. I've actually never heard of him, but I mean.
Oh, really? He's he's this wacky like YouTube bodybuilder dude who looks like Thor, who is like a white nationalist, and he's like training to like fight off all of the immigrants or some crap. Like, I don't think I've ever really watched him.
I don't think he's a white nationalist, if exactly, but he is very much like he's very much the idea that Sweden should remain Sweden, as I think he puts it. Like,
yeah, we know a catchphrase, "Bevara Sverige svenskt," which means preserve Sweden for Swedes, more or less. Well, when it comes to the Nazi presence, I mean, sure, they exist, and because of the left and the leftist narrative nowadays, they've actually been given a lot more visibility, and which has actually served them well, because they're actually increasing in their numbers. And that's because of the leftist narrative, because people are sick and tired of hearing how bad people they are, because they're white, because they're ethnically Swedes, because etc. Yada yada. Insert different intersectional theory over here. So I mean, sure, the Nazis are real here. What people do, what people in the American sphere actually needs to get is that when it comes to Nazis, in Europe, we actually know what a Nazi is. You in the United States do not. You got at the worst, you got the KKK, which, by the way, we call them.
But that's Democrats. Just a funny thing.
Yeah. Well. Anyways, I mean, when it comes to all of this, the Nazis are actually here, and that's sad. And the left could have done something about this years ago, yet they didn't. Because they only said, "Oh, you know what? You're fucked up. You're a Nazi," and just didn't really want to argue with them. They didn't come with any useful counterpoints or anything. They just said to them, "Well, we're not going to talk to you anymore," and just took their backs towards them. And that's why we see an increase in Nazism and aggressive nationalism here in Sweden. Although I'm actually a patriot. I'm patriot.
Screen share me, Cat or Bacon. So this is. I'm sorry. Keep talking, but this is the dude.
Yeah. I cannot really see anything really. For some reason.
It's not. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, he's ugly. He's ugly as sin.
No, yeah, he's not hot to me, but here. So let's find. Okay, like no, there'll be ones with his shirt off.
I think he's kind of like the Swedish.
Oh, does he get in a fight in this one? No, Jesus fuck. Where's he? There's usually he has his shirt off and he's like working out and stuff. So
homoerotic.
Yeah, anyway. He's like the
homoerotic fun for the whole family.
I really think he is kind of like the Swedish Alex Jones. Like he's like
No, not at all. I mean, I've actually never heard of him. Never, ever.
People talk about him a lot over here. Like maybe he's an actor. Maybe it's not real.
Well, no, I think it's real. He's very popular, but with like a foreign audience.
Yeah, it's real, but he's degenerate. He's actually considered ugly in Sweden.
Oh, well, no, he's not hot.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
like his facial structure. His facial structure would be that of the lower class.
I actually think of the one who becomes the Grim Reaper in that Peter Jackson movie. What's it called? Not Close Encounters, but anyway.
District 9.
No, not District 9. An earlier movie. Anyway.
Oh, the Frightener?
I've actually never heard of this guy. Never.
I'm just trying.
Oh my god.
So ugly.
Lingongrova, come on. How?
What did you just say?
Lingongrova, that's the bread he was holding there. It's kind of like, oh shit, how more stereotypical can you be, more or less?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I've actually never heard of this guy. Never.
You should watch some of his videos and tell us what you think next time we talk.
He has some pretty rabid fans. Like I must admit, like I don't 100% know what I think about him, but I have enjoyed watching him from time to time.
I've never actually watched a video of his. I've just looked at him because he's weird.
I've watched several of his. They were very puzzling.
Bacon, could you stop presenting me to everyone?
Sure.
Well, I mean, he looks very, very, very much what we would call a blöjnazist, diaper Nazi.
A what?
A diaper Nazi.
What does that mean?
That's kind of like, yeah, I'm so Nazi, but yet I'm not.
I poop in my shit.
Yeah, and I poop in my own shit.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, I'm just gonna call it. I'm saying shade is actually baked into the very foundation of Swedish.
Actually, now that I think about the people that I've known from, well, she was Norwegian. There's one of the girls that lived in my dorm freshman year in New York City. She was an art student. She was a really, really good artist, but she was a fucking wacko. Her name was Hane. And
Hanna.
No, Hane.
Yeah, Hanna.
Okay. Well, she was just very she would say the most strange things at this. She's one of these weird artist girls that was like in an alternate reality all the time. Just that was like, I'm sure if she was in Norway, she would also be a weird person. Like, she was very strange, and she looked like a bimbo. Like, if you looked at her, she was just this like blonde girl that kind of dressed like a model, though she would gain weight and be like kind of fat, but she still still very pretty and have good makeup and good hair all the time. And then she'd say these like just very randomly. I can't even remember like a single, because she didn't talk much. She would blurt out little sentences of just weird shit. And you could tell she was following what we were talking about, but it was just like, whoa. And then she'd always be drawing. And I mean, always, because she was a first-year illustration student that was just obsessed with drawing, because I guess she must have been really bored up in Norway. And she would draw pictures in the elevator, because we lived in a fucking falling apart building. It was this building that was actually it wasn't made to be a dorm at all. It used to be an apartment, and my school bought it to turn most of the rooms into dormitories, but not all of them. So there was permanent residents that have been in the place since before it was a dorm, because there's rent control in New York. So they can't get rid of some people. And it was this very, very weird place, and they just did not really care what we did. So she would draw in the elevator like these fucking penises, and they'd be these extremely like vividly drawn, like very detailed, like with veins, like this and she was really good. She was training to be an animator, and it would just be this like, I was like, oh, fucking Hane was in here, look at that shit, oh god.
Well,
like, how long was she there? That must have taken her like 45 minutes. Oh my god.
Like, what kind of animation is she training for? Hentai?
Yeah, yeah, she was. I mean, the one thing that I remember about her, that was the thing that she said, because she didn't talk a lot. Like, we would make her say the word lesbian because she couldn't really say it very well, and she would be like, "Why do you always make me say it? Why do you always make me say lesbian?" Lesbian.
Yeah. It's that's really thick Norwegian accent.
Yeah, she's like lesbian, and then we'd be like, "Ha ha ha!" Say it again. She'd be like, "Why? It's not. I see not why it's funny." You know?
It's actually in Norwegian that's lesbe. In Swedish that would be lesbisk, but we actually have more. How should I say? We have a more slang term like faggot, but for lesbians, and it actually implies that you're a crab lice, and that's flota. Flota.
I'm just gonna stop saying it now.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, Scandinavian accents is kind of funny, and Norwegians they really talk like this, and they go up and down every single day.
Tech support.
Yeah, think of tech support, but with Norwegian instead. That would be hilarious.
Oh wow, that would be awesome.
okay, we're definitely renaming the stream "Sweden is Metal."
Yeah. Well, I mean, but yeah, I mean, she actually sounded like pretty much like the stereotypical Norwegian to my ears, actually.
Yeah, no, I think that I wouldn't. She probably came from one of the bigger cities or something. You know, she seemed like a city girl. Like it wasn't like she was obviously totally country. She had no problem going to New York, making friends, going out to clubs, and acting, you know, kind of normal. And then people like start talking to her, and they're like, "Oh shit, where the fuck you from?" You know, and but because we all had fake IDs, and she would be with us a lot, and so she had to have gone out with us a few times. Like, she worked a lot though. She was always working on projects, but all the first year art school kids did for the most part, but they would find time to go out. So
and draw penises.
You know, that was part of her schoolwork. She was always doing that. Like it was like they don't care. Like, okay, if you actually go to a good art school, they don't care what you draw for your fine art classes. Like, you know, there's your weird wacky art classes where you can draw whatever. And then there's your fine arts where they train you to draw realistically. And like, that's why they have nude portraiture. And if you want to zero in on a fucking penis, it's like, go right ahead, just make it look realistic or make it look stylized realistic. Like, but it needs to be somewhat realistic. And that's the point. And so she got really obsessed with drawing penises with lots of veins on them and shit.
Oh, by the way, do you remember like a couple of years back, or was it last year? You know, when they had this pink hats that were supposed to be pussy hats? Yeah. We actually, you know, a really really big insult is actually be called fitthuvud, which means pussy head. That's actually really insulting to be called that, especially if you're a man. And then we have rövhatt, which means literally ass hat instead.
I'm still picturing from the first one like some really tall, buff, bald dude with like a vagina on the top of his head.
And we wonder why we don't take them seriously.
Precisely. So you can kind of imagine how gay guys would have reacted when this came out. We had so much material for drag shows.
So with the pussy hats, since those are out, is it going to be the front hole fedora now, or what?
Oh my god, I'm dying.
My lady?
I'm dying. Oh my god. I think
I think I broke the stream.
I think I'm rupturing my internal organs. Oh my god!
No, you're ripping apart your inner cunt.
You know what, guys? I thought that I could be, you know, kind of sassy and metal, but I'm apparently nothing for the literal meaning of Swedish insults. when this is like the one. Apparently, Swedish is like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings, just for insults.
Yes.
You think
that you should only hear a Czech insult?
Oh my god!
Yeah. It's they actually have I think it's called Pocahontas Krat, which means literally a pussy from a fairy tale.
A pussy from oh my.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's actually literally, you look like a pussy from a fairy tale.
Nice.
What else can you say? Like what else can you say?
Oh, what else? What else for funny Czech insults? Well, you know, kurva, that's whore.
It's a good thing we don't have ads on this channel.
Yeah.
Don't anymore, did you? Right?
Yeah, we Viking funeraled the entire concept of being family friendly long ago.
Yeah, this is where I could like literally say whatever the hell I want because I have to constantly self-censor on my channel to the point where I'm able to stream again on my main channel, which I keep forgetting about, like because it's been so long. Like it has become completely accepted in my being that I'm not someone who streams because about 9 months of the last 12 months I wasn't able to, and I on my channel when I make my videos I have to like think really very clearly about whether or not something might get me a hate speech strike, and because I've had 4, and it's horrible being someone that I'm someone who does tap into the internal monologue to let it speak for me. You know, I can completely just think out loud extremely well for a very long time and articulate exactly what's going through my head, and it's not a problem for me for the most part. So for me to have to write in that way, and if I ever make improv videos, it is so stifling. So I have to have this place, Gaytriarchy, where I can say whatever I want, or I would go. I would start to become a different person.
It's nice to let it all out.
Or you can just teach yourself Swedish, and you can say fitta all the time, which means cunt, and pussy.
Fitta.
You know, it's so funny. It's so funny. I've never articulated what I just said right there, and it's really funny because, in the same way as everybody, like I know so many people who think that they're not allowed to say that feminists need to stop lying about gay men, otherwise I don't want to be around them. You know, like I will just say that. I don't know anywhere in my city where I would not just say that to someone. Like what are you gonna do? You fucking punch me, you obese piece of shit? Like I'm not scared. Like shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like and I wouldn't go to some place where it's mostly gonna be them. If they're gonna outnumber me, I would never go anywhere near that. So it's just like not something I worry about. So I get to sit there and think in my head that I'm such this brave, bold person that I never worry about, getting in trouble socially, and I never worry about getting in trouble at work. No, what am I talking about? I'm constantly terrified of getting in trouble on YouTube. I'm constantly terrified for politically correct BS. It's even affected me so much that I have to have my alternative space which gets to be my thing. And so even though I speak about political correctness, I still deal with it in the context of speaking about political correctness dramatically, and have to have an outlet for do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just don't see it as being political correctness in and of itself. I mean, we all self-censor to some degree.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with political correctness.
I think there's a difference between choosing your words carefully and feeling that you have to choose your words in a certain way.
Yeah, but there's like the choosing your words carefully because it's better writing, and choosing your words carefully because, maybe that'll sound to a non-binary person like I'm saying non-binary isn't real, and I guess I'm not allowed to do that according to my last hate speech strike. And so I have to completely rephrase the way I say something and come up with clever mental gymnastic phraseology that doesn't sound too clunky, but describes the same exact point, but doesn't actually explicitly say non-binary isn't real. And it's actually really laborious to have to think in such terms when I just want to say what I mean, which I used to be able to do when I started this channel.
Actually, I would say that then you perhaps can understand the Swedish mentality, because that's what you were saying. That is exactly the Swedish mentality among men is right now. And we've already had this in our culture for hundreds of years. So you can actually figure out what's going to happen soon. It's going to explode here, eventually.
What is going to explode?
That's scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, men will actually start to explode when it comes to this, because we're always, well, in our culture in general, it's not really polite to say exactly directly what you want. So we also have to. Well, yeah, my fiance does, but he's from the Czech Republic. But in common Swedish manners, you don't really directly say what you want to say. You always go a way around it.
Yeah. We would call that passive aggressive, and in well, that passive aggressive would be synonymous with that. And people who are passive aggressive, it's usually used as an insult. But passive aggressive people would have a nice way of. They would just call it manners. They would say they would think that all people are like that. And sometimes it could be nice to just hint at things, and other times you need to say what you mean. If you're around people who say what you mean, because I'm a person, my formative years were in New York City, where you say exactly what you mean because you don't have any time to not. Like, it's like, look, I'm in the fucking deli. I'm never going to see you again. Make sure not to give me any wet change. It's raining, and every time I come in, you know what I mean? Like, into a deli, you're giving me all this wet change. Please try to give me something dry. I need something dry. Just $1 that's dry, please. You know, and you say that. Whereas in Seattle, you would be like, is there any way you have like I'm getting on the bus, and so I really hate to trouble you, and you know, blah 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 blah. It's a totally different thing, and it's something that like I largely will never completely adopt, just because I lived in New York. I'm not very good at it.
Yeah,
it sounds like Czech and Swedes meet.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah,
Swedes meet. Yes.
Yeah. So I just had to go because I understand completely what you're saying, Prince. So I mean, it's it really sort of say to tickle my Swedishness, because it's really what's really been bothering Sweden for the longest of times, really.
That's an image, tickling Swedishness.
And so, are you saying when it's going to explode? Would you say that that's because it's something that Swedes have already had to do, and when Americans are trying to make it go even a step further, then they're going to be like, "Stop! We've already been like this for long enough," and it's going to make them very angry. Okay.
Yes,
well, that's a wonderful.
Heads will roll and blood will flow.
Okay. So that's a wonderful ending point. It sounds like you have to leave.
No, not really. Well, I just need to.
I thought you were. Oh, sorry.
I also thought you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, I just need to pee, and then and then I can come back.
We might want to end the show because Bacon usually likes to go to sleep because he wakes up really early.
Yeah, it is very late for me too.
And we've been on for over 3 hours now, and people don't watch really, really long streams. And so I'd like to keep this short so that people watch this, because I think this was a really good episode, and it would be great to maybe have you back on in the future. Yeah,
sure. Actually, after this election, I will probably have some more material. So yeah,
we'll look forward to it.
Yeah, and I would really look forward to seeing your GGTOW video.
Yeah, I will just have to make them first in a really good way.
Just do it on the honor system. Tell them that I made it and you thought it was really good. Honor system, y'all.
Yeah, precisely. So, well, thank you so much for having me, and it has been a real pleasure, really, and it's fun to actually meet your heroes in person. Well, not in person, but you get what I mean.
Heroes.
Yeah,
can I meet them?
Well, I mean,
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, because being Prince, I've been following you since the start, and Arcat's-Gay, I've been following you since the start as well, and you too, Feral. So it's been really pleasant. Yeah, I know how stalky that sounds, but still, take it as a compliment.
No,
and you've already been privy to some of the behind the scenes talk right before this show. The YouTubers talk to each other. We talk to each other.
Oh, we're gossipy bitches.
Yeah, no, and you'd be surprised who's talking to who. And so don't try us. That's gonna be it. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, talk to you, and I'll see you later. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.